Who?
You were more positive about it, right?
Oh, we got to blame it on Todd then. All
I know
right.
what the problem is, but I can't repeat it.
So the local forecast just updated, it says possible drizzle. Possible drizzle.
That's an emergency notification.
Possible drizzle, really?
Yeah.
I'm up and running.
All right.
You got it?
Yes.
All right. Hey, we made it. All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order today at 5:04. Starting with a roll call.
Sheena Martinez, District 1.
Paul Carey, District 2.
Bill King, District 3.
Todd Shearhart, District 4.
Herb Dyer, District 5.
And Darren Schroeder, Mayor. So everyone's accounted for. If you will, please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to you, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Please remain standing for the invocation. Pastor, thank you.
I'll be reading from Colossians 3, verse 23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for tonight and this city council. Father, we pray that you would lead, guide, and direct their decisions and their steps. Father, bless them with your wisdom. Father, walk with them in every choice that they make. May there be unity and oneness. And Father, we pray that you would bless and provide the needs of this city. Father, we pray that you would be with them and their families. Watch over them and keep them in your care. Father, as we prepare for Resurrection Sunday, Easter Sunday, I pray that each and every one of us will take time and give you praise for what your son did on that Calvary cross. Father, thank you for loving us. Thank you for saving us. Father, we ask and we pray that you would bless every member that's attending here tonight, the mayor, city council, residents, business owners, church leaders, and the city staff. Keep them and keep their families in your care. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, Father.
All right, next item is citizens' comments. Do we have anybody that would like to speak for citizens' comments? If you would please come on up, state your name, your address, please.
My name is Abel Reyes. I live at 1113 Berlin Street on the corner of Berlin and Athens, and I'm requesting for four-way stop signs for the speeding and also traffic from the school where they pick up the kids. They're starting to use Athens, Berlin, down Constantinople, which is okay, but that'll help. And then the upgrade on the Lions Field there's going to be a lot of kids there, so I'm also requesting for those stop signs there. I used to have four-way stop signs, but they took them away when they removed some, so I want them back because I've got grandkids now living with me, taking care of me. Well, my son and them. And also, when it rains and storms, after the storms, that is a drainage. I'm pretty sure you all know Athens in Berlin, but Athens, the kids, people, they use it for fun play, splashing water all over the place. But my main goal is for the traffic, the speeding from Washington to Houston, from Houston to Berlin to Washington. So I would like two more stop signs, which would make it a four-way stop sign. They make it a little bit easier for the cops to give them a ticket, not that they'll be crying, and, you know, hey, we don't have a stop sign there. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, would anybody else like to speak? Great, thank you. Next item is consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have minutes for March 22, 2022. That's a lot of twos. Regular called council meeting, ordinance on establishing a municipal utility rate, quarterly financial and investment reports, and resolution for submission of an application for criminal justice grant program. Do I have a motion on that?
I make a motion, we adopt the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? District 1?
Got a couple of questions.
We'll need to pull it off.
Consent.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
All in favor?
Pull it off. You can motion to pull it off. If you want to pull something off.
It's something regarding the general fund expense reports.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull those off.
Do you want to pull that off and have that discussion, and we'll put it back on next week, or next meeting?
Well,
No, you can pull it off tonight
Yes.
and put it and just do it separate.
We have to amend our
Right.
motion to
Yes.
accept those.
So the question is, do you want him to amend the motion to remove that from approval?
Please, because these are legitimate questions.
I modify my motion to accept the consent agenda with the exception of this would be the financial and investment reports.
Okay.
And I approve as the second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. All right, do you have the report?
I'm
that is
looking
it?
at the reports right now.
Okay, are you,
What?
sorry, can you bring up are you going to do the presentation on the mayor report and the,
Well, no.
I thought we were going to talk about the other items on consent.
Right, you just drop it
What
down
I
to the
do,
next one.
so just to be clear, because this probably hasn't happened for a while, if you have items on consent that cannot be discussed, that's one purpose of having the consent agenda is it's items that ideally we just make a motion and pass. But if you want to have discussion, you can motion to pull them off, then you adopt the remainder of the consent agenda, and then you address the items you pulled off. So you have a council member that has a question about the financial reports, we need to go ahead and talk about those.
okay, perfect. So then we can discuss it now?
Yes.
That's really interesting, I didn't realize
They're on
that.
Again, the rule, just for open discussion, the rule is if it's not on the agenda, so when you have folks come up and talk about items like a stop sign, if it's on the agenda for discussion, then the city has to wait and bring it forward on a future meeting. But since this item was legitimately posted, it was posted for consent, but it's a legitimately posted item, it can be pulled off from consent
Okay.
and treated as part of the regular agenda.
And just, okay,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that after.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. Under the general fund revenue expense report, page 1, under expenditures, you have listed the Tour de Castroville as an expenditure.
Okay.
That were the funds raised from that event, is that being used to offset those expenses?
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
I'd have to-
And then the remaining amount, as for years past, unless something's changed, the remaining amount would go towards the regional park.
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
I'm not as familiar with what the arrangement is between the capital monies and how they're spent.
Okay.
But I can certainly provide a
Okay,
follow-up.
because my big question was, with the remaining amount, the positive side, how would that be earmarked in the funds to ensure it goes to regional park?
Okay.
If that's still the case. That's it, thank you.
Okay. So no action on that one.
I would just speak to that briefly, that those monies, I know we have very kind of careful control as far as expenditures, they submit all the receipts, Arnie is very diligent
Oh, yeah.
about that part of it. And I know that they also, the revenues they receive, I believe are held in separate account, they aren't in the city account, so.
So I'm going to interject, so one thing, I'm not sure if you got the email from last week. We need to be, if we're going to move the meetings along, if we have questions like this, they need to be asked beforehand. We shouldn't have this kind of discussion, this should have already been dealt with, so. All right. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Yes.
I got it.
Well, let's take care of that offline, that way we can keep them, we got a lot of stuff to cover, and I don't really want to be here till midnight.
Ready for the mayor's report?
Yes.
I applaud you. I like this.
Well, you told me.
I like this. And yes, you can fuss at me if I
For,
do the same.
for those of you that don't get this, they derided me for the long meetings, and so we're working on ways to speed them up so that we can go home at night. Just click. Yep. All right, so what we're going to talk about, we had a Creekside water meeting. We had a town hall with them last week. We're going to talk about the Doscote fire, some of the stuff that happened with that, the upcoming regional transportation meeting, the Medina Valley ISD bonds, and a final item. I wanted to stick something on here for just for notification. No discussion on this one, please, because it's just something else I wanted to make you aware of. So next slide. Creekside water. So we had a town hall meeting. We didn't need to have a town hall meeting. This is something that we could have worked out, but we wanted to make sure. I think it's very important that people have a hand in their own future. Creekside is outside of the city limits, but we are supplying the water. It's an agreement that was established in 2006. They've had some system issues, some substandard installation, some leaks, some problems, low water pressure, no fire hydrants. They've got a lot of issues out there that we're trying to address with them and being responsible both as a service provider and to the citizens of Castroville. So we are working on a path forward. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of how we're approaching this, why we're doing that, and just expressing again the desire to make sure that we're communicating openly and making sure that people have a hand in their own future. The Doscote fire. So this is the plane that had the suppression. It's really kind of interesting that all of the homes seem to be painted the same red color now. This thing.
Picture, whoever took that.
Yeah, that was so the devastation. I got a chance to ride around. It was on Sunday. We were helping out, just filling in the gaps where people were needed. There was so much outreach. I mean, this is the thing that I wanted to call out here. You know, we had people that were, Yvonne from Funky Chunky Jules was bringing down tacos to the flight crew that were over at our airport. The governor flew into our airport, came out and did a press meeting over at the ESD fire station. We had so many people that were reaching out to the fire station saying, how can we help? What can we do? Councilman Dyer actually took one of the families that was displaced into his home. They had one gentleman that was disabled. They had a poor puppy that was displaced, and so thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. And we had other councilmen, Councilman King and Councilman Carey, that offered up assistance. They offered up some coolers and some cots, and really just people really locked arms and helped others out. I was really impressed with that. We had a discussion this morning with the Medina County mayors and the county judge with a Go Medina meeting about how we're going to be locking arms for things like this in the future so that we can really pull together as a community. It was a great example of community spirit. So if you want to help, there were 119 total families that were, or homes without power for the better part of a week. So we know at least some of the folks were without, they lost food in it, they lost some other stuff. There were 3 homes total that were lost. And I know that like our State Farm office over here was handling one of those. They were really proactive in getting that taken care of. So if you want to help out the families, Paradise Canyon on Thursday, April 21st. I don't think that Phil's going to be there. It's Aggie Mustard. So we'll miss you. Yeah. So, but if you want to donate, please go by. There'll be some great music. Cactus Country is going to be playing, and it's a great way to help out some of those families and have a good time as well. Just really quickly, Dr. Rohrbach is here. Yep, there he is. Hey, Dr. Rohrbach. So he had covered this just to let us know what was going on with the bond election coming up. So early voting is April 25th to May 3rd. Election day is actually on May 5th. There's how did I put May 5th? May 7th. Sorry. Thank you. See, that's why I brought him here. To fix my typos. Okay, let's go to, I've got 3 slides on this. The first one just really shows this is what's in their district right now. If you can see, it's, what is it, 2 middle schools, 1 high school, and 5 elementary schools. Those are all listed up there. The district covers about 300, wow, square miles. And so this is the amount of growth that's happening in here. The district...
It's my mouse, it's very touchy. Sorry.
Okay, one slide forward. There you go. The district has 49 actively building subdivisions. I want to say that again, 49 actively building subdivisions. Within Medina Valley ISD, there's also 14 future subdivisions. Of these, groundwork is underway on over 3,000 lots within the 21 subdivisions. So this is just to say there's a lot of growth coming. We need to take care of our kids. We need to make sure that they have a place to go get educated. And the more we work on this, I mean, if you look at the traffic patterns that are going to have, right now they're going to be crushing into the ones that are already there. So it is imperative for so many different reasons that we move forward with this. So the proposition, it's actually the way that Dr. Rohrbach explained it, because the football stadium is not an education facility. They have to put it as a separate proposition. But all in, you've got the proposition A for the high school, number 2, middle school, number 3, elementary school, number 7, the new ROTC building at MVI High School, and additional land acquisition. And then proposition B, the football stadium at high school number 2. They explained that the reason that they wanted to have, they talked about utilizing the existing high school stadium, but they wanted to give the sense of pride to the individual school spirit for that high school. So that's why the board put this out. Yeah. Well, if you want more information, if you go to MVISD's website, it's all on there, and you can accost poor Dr. Rohrbach right there. He's got a few more weeks before he retires, so we want to make sure that we challenge him with those good times.
He's also an Aggie.
And he's also an Aggie. All right. Last item, again, no discussion on this one. Just wanted to let you know, there's a lot of things that have been going on with broadband in Castroville, in and around. AT&T's been doing a pretty extensive fiber expansion east of the river. You may have seen on Lower Lacoste Road, they've been doing some boring out there. So they are expanding their network with fiber optics. There'll be fiber optics to the new subdivisions. There'll be additional fiber optics over time that will come into the existing. And right now that is something that's going on. That right now is primarily on the east side. We're trying to work with them to get it into this portion inside of the horseshoe, and especially some redundancy up to the cell phone tower, so that we have cell phone service when the power goes out and when fiber lines get cut and any other myriad of items. ComZoom is going to be, ComZoom customers will get a notification in the next couple of weeks in your next bill about what's going on with them. It is going to provide, I think that you'll see a higher level of service. It's going to be a very slow transition. ComZoom will continue to service. They'll explain everything that's going on. They'll be putting out additional communication, but just be aware that they're coming. And part of this is, as the area is growing so extensively, a small company like that was really, they were keeping up, but it takes a lot for a small company to do that. So I believe that with this, they will have the ability to do a much larger expansion and service all of the people that are coming in without having the rest of us take a hit on that.
Did you say the word spectrum?
No.
That'll be released in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
They're being purchased, but you can't say tell us who it is.
All right, so I didn't say that. Disregard.
Nice.
Sorry for the record.
Thanks. And really, the last item on here is the commitment to improving broadband. Scott has been phenomenal about this, and everybody that's coming in, we're making sure that the people that, as they're building these new homes, we want to make sure that we've got high-speed internet. I mean, COVID really, I was talking to Bob Cohen, the president of ComZoom, and he's like, you know, if we wouldn't have come in here a few years ago and built this out and provided the broadband that we did, people were on DSL and fixed line dial-up, and there's no way that this area, this community, many communities would have been able to survive through COVID. So it is hugely important, and we are continuing to make that push to make sure that people have access to that broadband. That's it.
10 minutes on the nose.
Man, I'm working on it.
Some knuckles. Good job.
Time step. Oh, yeah, next item, sorry. No, same item, actually, this is a city administrator report.
I might be a little bit faster, but I'm cheating. If you have any questions on my report, I'd be happy to entertain these at this point. At this time, have any comments prepared for you all tonight?
Did you get any questions over the,
I had a couple of points of clarification on the agenda in general. I don't recall anything specific from my report.
okay. So if there's any major discussion on this, we need to have this with Scott during the week. If you have any points of clarification, anything you want to call out, then that's fine.
I just want to annotate, I heard that we're getting stuff in for the River Bluff electrical project.
Yes. So we did place everything on order. All the components, basically the city ordered almost 100% of what's going to be needed for that project. And the reason we did that was because we're in this extraordinary period of time where lead times are ridiculous. And we knew we had to take that more to out the bid yet. I'm still a little bit concerned about the fact that when that does get bid out, the River Bluff project, that will, we're going to be, in effect, asking contractors to place a proposal on work that they won't be able to start for like 8 months. I'm a little concerned about that, but we'll see how that goes and where it leads us. All right, so if there's any questions, Mayor, we can.
Okay, perfect. All right. Next item, discussion and appropriate action on
That was
CIP.
2 minutes from my report.
Nicely done. At 5:25, discussion and appropriate action on CIP projects for Lions Park, Regional Park, and September Square. So for this, we have Devin Frederickson, Parks and Rec Director.
Good evening. Thank you all
Hey, Devin.
for all of your continued support with Parks and Recreation. It is my pleasure being here. And for tonight, I'm bringing the CIP projects for 22 through 24. For 22, we will be asking for approval on moving forward with the CIP projects. The funding amount was brought to you earlier this year. 24 or 23 to 24 projects, we will just be bringing to your attention so that you can get a first glimpse at what we're moving forward with.
Scott, you got it?
Yeah,
Okay, you got
I'm
it.
trying to get out of it, but okay. Try this again. Do you want to switch roles or do you want to do?
No, sorry. Whenever needed.
Banner is the best way to go.
Leave that thing alone. That's a nice picture of the park.
Yes, that was some of the pictures.
So you're gonna be raising ducks on the
park. So we'll go straight in. As you can see right here, this is the CIP. You've all seen this multiple times over the past few months. And we will be addressing the general fund park funding, starting with Lions Park, Regional Park, and moving on to September Square. Where these items are. And with Lions Park, we have budgeted for the bond $250,000 for 22, and for 23, $40,000.
We're actually going to ask for all that money now, in part because we'll see how these projects play out. They may take a little over a year to complete, so we will be spending over the time frame. But we've also, keeping in mind, we've already borrowed all the money we're going to borrow for 22 through 24. The city has for these types of projects.
So just a segue off of that, the amount of funding for 22 that we will be asking out of 23 would be $40,000. But the three major projects we are addressing this year is restrooms, playground, and splash pad. We got a lot of this input. Y'all have been here and approved our Parks Master Plan. But out of that master plan, a lot of our information for Lions Park really came to fruition from our citizen input. As you can tell, you know, with any kind of city project, there's a lot of input, and with ours, you can't hit everything. So we addressed three of the major ones, which was a waterscape, somewhere for the kids to go out and play. Of course, we kept open space. You know, we don't want to fill everything with concrete. Playgrounds, and then of course, with anyone collecting, bathrooms. This right here is sort of an overview of what we want to plan for Lions Park. As you can tell, in the small left-hand picture is playground, splash pad, restroom, are all right there. They're the center part of the park. We're hoping to utilize that as a main attraction and also bring a good foundation for this side of town.
Can everybody picture where this is? This is, the parking lot is,
Off of Houston?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the,
Is Houston Street.
Yeah, because
right.
I was going to ask.
You can see the
on
school
other
right
side-
across the street.
Because on the other side is the pump or electrical thingy.
Yep.
And this is a multi-year plan. Each year, all the way to, I mean, with our Parks Master Plan, we went 10 years. But with that, you know, depending on funding and grants and items that come up, you know, we'll hit what we can. But of course, during the 22 year, we are addressing playground, splash pad, and restrooms. The first item we'll be addressing is the Lions Park ADA restroom. Turnkey price, $111,000. Site work, $4,000. Requesting funding, $115,000. With this project, once approved, we'll start in summer 2020 and finish by the end of the summer.
And that, the sheet on the right is just, that's what was included in that adopted CIP, just to show it to you again. The site work of $4,000, that looks low, and that's because that's material cost only. The rest of the cost would be donated labor within the city's staff.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah.
What's the security in the restroom and how is it going to get cleaned?
It'll be cleaned by our normal park. We have our park attendant who works weekends and then my park staff that works weekdays. So we'll clean that. With this,
Is it going to require an additional budget for that?
No, it would be minimal. Toilet paper, paper towels, I mean, of course, utilities.
Existing restrooms are out there, right?
Yes, the existing bathrooms out there are clean, as well as they can. They have door
They're
locking problems.
cleaned, but they're not clean.
We have a lot of vandalism out there.
And he asked about security on the door. The door's got a magnetic
Yes,
lock, correct?
one of the main features for this park that we really wanted was a magnetic lock. That magnetic lock engages at a certain time, and or can be controlled by a radio device. And then by that, the door will shut. Of course, it will still work if someone's inside to leave. But up until that point, it will keep locked until a certain time period that we want to, you know, release, 6 a.m. or whatever it is, and then it will be reopened. And then once it's fully opened, it locks into the open position.
The other thing about these turnkey bathrooms, I've actually purchased and installed these in the past. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're also lower maintenance in the long run. So they're designed to be more tamper resistant and more resistant to vandalism. The way the fixtures are installed, et cetera. The maintenance on them is more efficient. The way that the access to that maintenance happens. The typical issues with clogged drains, et cetera, are easier to fix and repair and maintain with a constructed building like this, one that's prefab.
One more question. On the exterior of the bathroom, parking lot, and other areas, are there any cameras that are providing any kind of security for? You're telling me that everything's going to be done remotely. What I'm worried about is being able to see what's going on around this place. So are you going to put a camera out there that's going to record things in case you have a crime
We can
problem?
offer an on-site camera since, I mean, that sort of goes into some of the items during my budget that I'm trying to address. PD having access to cameras at our park, having the ability to not just record a short period of time, but a long period of time. That way, when stuff comes up. This can be included on a closed circuit. We can have cameras plugged in there that can be reviewed if there is damage. At this point in time, I am looking for a radio, Wi-Fi, or connecting service, but they're just a little expensive and then getting the right connection. But we are looking in that for all of our restrooms to prevent vandalism.
Well, not just vandalism, but unfortunate other things too.
Yes, yes.
These are unair conditioned?
Yes, sir. They're not air
So
conditioned.
just vented?
Yes, sir.
And like your picture there shows, those are closed windows, or is there like open vents?
They can be closed during the winter and open, sort of like our current existing building. Those only have plexiglass, but these are a little bit more commercial grade. As you can tell, it is ADA accessibility. Men's and women's side will both have that, along with a water fountain in the front and a maintenance corridor for us to maintain any of those features.
Will there be a baby changing table?
Yes.
Okay.
The next item is Vortex Flash Pad. This item is, as of right now with our drought, is not sort of the thing I'd like to bring to you, but in the long run, water activities are huge. They're a great way for us to meet multiple needs. With this park, all-inclusiveness is our key. We want to provide that for this community, and we've seen the need. And a splash pad is a great way to do that. This splash pad is broken down into toddlers and small children, teens, and then middle-aged children. Why they're in the middle, I'm not quite sure. It's just how they're designed. But with this, the equipment price is $60,000.
Are you a middle-aged child?
Yeah.
All right.
What was that?
I was just checking to see if he was a middle-aged child.
Oh, that would be children that are, I think they classify them as
Preteens. Next.
Equipment price, $60,000, installation, $48,000, site work, $11,000, bringing the total project to $119,000.
And again, the project sheet on the right is what was provided with the CIP. This is initially kind of the concept when the CIP presented. The original cost was $125,000, so this is slightly under budget. However, we still are proposing utilizing the entire budget, the entire 290, so there's not extra money as you look at this project. Next slide.
So the base of the pad, is it like a rubber absorbing material?
It's concrete with a top layer that is a mixture of sand and some kind of polymer.
Okay.
It's a recommendation by them that helps.
No skids?
Whatever they have the mixture in, it helps with heat and then also
No
slipping.
slipping?
Yeah, and usually with
Fall
yes, fall
Yep,
protection.
okay.
Yes.
That's what I,
Polished concrete, why?
concrete expensive now.
When were your prices developed, like a month ago or 6 months ago?
So all of these prices are up to date, and that's why you're seeing some fluctuation or changes versus the capital improvement. As of right now, everything is current. So everything on here has been budgeted and changed. That's why, we are seeing increases, and actually in 7 days after tomorrow, the splash pad will go up 15%. So
these are prepared for approval tonight. Not everything on here is for approval. We'll distinguish between those two. But yes, the pricing's updated, and if you say yes tonight, we will put them on order as soon as possible and start that process to try and prevent some of that escalating prices that we see elsewhere.
Okay.
Game Time commercial grant, or commercial playground, as you can see right here, turnkey price $145,000. Currently, we have a grant for $21,000, and we are asking for $56,000. And then we are working right now on funding other funding sources, grants or private donations to fund the rest of this project.
How did that meeting go with Morgan's?
We're going to go out and tour next weekend.
Okay.
Actually. Is next weekend or week after? I think it's weekend after.
2 weeks.
Okay.
And for,
It went well.
I do want to highlight something really quickly, just for the benefit of those that haven't had this conversation. What Devin and his group have done is taken this from the initial idea of let's do something that's just compliant, just a playground that we can use, and then he's like, well, let's make sure that it is completely accessible. and then took a step further and said, well, what about like what Morgan's Wonderland does? It's not just accessible, it's fully inclusive. So no matter your disability, you can still play on it. And it costs a lot more to do that. And so he's been working, I know Arnie's been helping him out, he's been working on finding funding sources. So basically, what we get is something that, that all the kids can use. And I believe that there are, I believe Dr. Rohrbach could speak to this, but I believe that there are special needs, physical needs at the elementary school right across the street. So I just commend you on keeping it within the original budget, adding on features, adding on accessibility, adding on the availability to everybody, and finding partners to help you do that. So
I haven't done that yet, but that is the goal. That's what we're trying to do. If you fund this tonight, and we're unable to get that, the good news is we'll still be able to put a playground in. It will still be able to serve the community. It won't be all inclusive, but I believe that we have a better than good chance of getting this money from the foundation to expand it. Kudos to the
yeah.
Next, we're going to move on to Regional Park. $150,000 for 22, $350,000 for 23. Earlier this year, I came to you for the sports lighting. That's moving ahead on schedule. We will ask for $15,000 for sports board improvements in 2022 year. And in 2023, we are asking for restroom and concessions, field improvements, miscellaneous improvements, and pool improvements.
We're going to walk you through what those look like, but just understand we're not actually asking for approval of those funds tonight. That'll be subject to next year, and it'll actually be subject to whether or not we can still afford to do all those things next year. We want to walk you through, just kind of have, again, background and information on the CIP, what was contemplated, what was really proposed, and what our plan is moving forward.
Like I said, the sports field lighting, as you see on the right, the capital improvement price, we are right on budget for cost. We actually had some really good news. Projected start time is May, and we're going to hope to complete by middle of June, end of June at the latest.
Ready to go for July 4th?
Yes, that would be key, is having it ready for July 4th.
How will the dark sky certification be completed by then?
So the dark side certification, once they give us the official submittals and we send the geotag and everything to them, then, which is weird, I know, the support beams, knowing how deep they can go, all that, it all factors in.
Okay.
So once dark sky officially receives that, they will say yes or no, but they don't have any set designs that they approve. So
Okay.
it's a weird kind of process.
The good news is we're using a standard approach that's been approved by the
Okay.
Dark Skies organization in the past. So we anticipate that they're going to approve the project just based on the fact that we're using prior approved approaches to this type of design and implementation.
And this is the only existing contractor and designer that actually meets any of their criteria. So. The next is sports board improvements. These we're going to be hitting quite a few items. We're hoping to start this early summer and finish in fall. I'm asking for $15,000. We actually project it will be much less than that, but it gives us the ability, if we do see influx and pricing, we have that money set aside.
So the 15,000 shouldn't be strike through?
Well, that is what I'm asking for. Yes, it would make sense not to have it strike through. From in-house versus contractor, we were perceiving it around $15,000.
So what happens if you don't spend the 15,000? Where does it go?
It would go to our parks board as a set money, and then they could be used for the projects that have been isolated for improvement.
I don't like that. I think they should return the money if they don't use it.
Is this actually, that amount of money, if you don't fund it, if you don't spend it that year, it goes into the following year, and that all goes into the next budget
True.
cycle.
One of the things that we are trying to do in the interest of rising costs is you'll see there's some miscellaneous projects outlined in the regional park for the future improvements. You want to go through those real quick. We have the restrooms, some other things in here, but that's more than likely, that's what we would do, is bring it to the parks board and say, okay, these are some items that are in the CIP that were high priority to be done. Do we want to go ahead and use the money for those items?
So like
And we're not talking about, again, a lot of money. It's At most, $10,000. That's what I would anticipate seeing as far as the leftover funds.
On the trail improvements, would you work with the regional, Friends of Regional Park and the sponsors for each trail? Because there's sponsors for each of the trails out there.
We would definitely work with the Friends of the Park and then, of course, the groups that work with them, and then provide them funding. I know there was a few items that were addressed that they needed large amounts, and that could be, providing city staff and using equipment to help. But yes, that is the goal.
Okay.
When we refer to trail improvements, any of the existing trails in the lower part, we use current park budget to help improve those.
Okay.
Feedback.
So for 2023, one of the main projects that has been brought up was restroom and concessions. So on here, that item is earmarked. Hopefully with the rising pricing and everything, we can still fulfill this project in 23. But at that point in time, we'll reevaluate that.
Where would that go? Where would the concession stand go?
It would go to replace the current bathrooms.
Okay.
And then of course the field improvements would address irrigation improvements and possibly extending to further down towards the front of the park, adding extra fields.
Yeah, we don't have to discuss it, but I became my mindset. I was walking through the park today, as we do almost every day. Those existing bathrooms are nice. I know you have a concern with ADA, but they don't have to be ADA compliant because you don't have to upgrade a building unless you remodel it. And if you just go in there and repair what's there, now we have even additional bathrooms. But those buildings are really pretty nice looking buildings, and they're aesthetically pleasing to the to the Temple Theater next to them. They're all the same rock work. So when we get into next year, you might want to think about that.
Sure.
Have some
That's a
discussion.
great idea. It's always good to have more assets than changing it. So if we could add on to that, and then that's great.
Good point.
I like that idea actually.
And the cost to demolish that easily, that cost savings there will offset and help you build a new building.
So the next item, of course, is the miscellaneous improvements you hear me speak about. Shade cover, fence replacement, these are stuff that are absolutely needing to be done. The miscellaneous improvements, improving signage, I try to do that each year, but with increasing costs and everything, it's very hard to get things done all at once. So with that, the $40,000 is the miscellaneous. The last item is September Square. It's split into two different $15,000 earmarks, 22 and 23. 22 is to get lighting, landscape lighting there. That would be in coordination with the HLC, since they oversee this park. Lighting would be, of course, smart lighting, but it can be really maintained and used whatever form the HLC would like us to use. We did get high-tech lighting, so any kind of changes we need, we can adjust the budget. But with this, it will really light up that park and create a really nice focal. It's not meant to be overpowering. It's just meant to light it up. And if you've ever driven by there at night, it's pitch black.
Pitch black, yeah.
So we really want to have that and then really make it
Make it
look pretty.
aesthetically pleasing without affecting the dark sky. There's ways of doing uplighting that in terms of lumens and direction, so that it's not like a beacon in the sky and affecting dark skies, but it still allows you to see the foliage and the trees and all that stuff.
Kerosene lanterns.
Start time would be 22.
Kerosene lanterns would go good.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Project start time 22, finish 23. It's pretty quick and pretty nice turnaround. Of course, the trail improvements, that are budgeted for 23, we would try to address those during that time. During the earmark trail improvements, that would also be to re-level
The path?
the pathway and just clean out a lot of that dirt that's mixed in. It's only about 2 inches, no, an inch and a half of granite and dirt, so we want to get that nice and fixed and clean.
So would you redo the pavers there that have the dedications and everything on them?
That would be something that we Yes.
Okay.
When we re-level those, yes.
Yeah.
And I know that that's something we would be coordinating with the HLC, because that's something that they're addressing right now.
Oh, yes.
So the last thing is an unfunded project. This is something that I would love to pursue, but it's at y'all's discretion. As you know, the RV park provides a large portion of our revenue for the parks. And with that, there's been talks about improvements over the years, and so this is a sort of a site layout that I've drawn up. With this, it requires larger sites, but still in the same footprint, a little bit larger than what's currently there. But these would be what we would label as future standards for our park. With that, we want to improve all the sites, but we are completely booked, so we're trying to figure out ways to move people around. So this is a picture I had taken at another. I visited half a dozen RV parks, and I really like this one. Uses artificial turf, so we don't have that whole concrete jungle look, and that's what we want to really focus on with these improvements. So with that, the additional site costs, we're projecting $12,000 per site. Revenue would follow that. Automatic gate, $15,000, so a total unfunded, but hopefully funded one day, $121,000.
So the concept here is, I mean, you see that the revenue's around 50 grand a year, so in roughly 3 years, we pay ourselves back for the cost of improvement. And the goal here would be to make this improvement on the west side, and then after that improvement's made, empty one of the roads, basically, move them over to the new area and then redo that area. It's not going to be possible to redo, or we don't think it's possible to redo the entire park to this standard. We're going to, and we still have a need for smaller RVs. So part of that, a future-looking project would be to look at the existing RV park, the east side of it, and look at what does a redesign of that look like. And we really haven't done a whole lot of that. We know that we can mimic these same style sites in that first row. And we know that there's some spaces in there that probably just need to be eliminated altogether. But again, I think this gives us that opportunity. If we're able to expand it, increase the revenue, and then increase the investment in the east side of the RV park, we can end up with a better product all the way around. One of the goals is to improve the fencing. It's all chain link fencing out there. It is kind of a concrete jungle. We do have some nice mature trees, which is a plus, but the spaces are very, very tight. So this isn't necessarily for improvement. You could, or for approval tonight, you could approve if you wanted to, but we really want to just kind of open it up for discussion and make you aware of kind of some of our thoughts and plans for the RV park. That said, one other thing I want to mention is recognizing, again, I'm a plant. I just arrived here recently, but I perceived from discussions with the Parks Board, with other groups, that we need to be very careful with the RV park. Is probably my advice to you all as you think about expansion. On the one hand, it is a nice revenue stream, but on the other hand, we probably want to be careful and cognizant of the culture and kind of just the general atmosphere that exists in the regional park. I don't think it'd be appropriate to turn this RV park into a resort-style RV park with a bunch of amenities and everything where it's the main attraction. Right now, it's just it's a plus one to the regional park. It's one more thing. It's an additional amenity, but it isn't the main core event. And I really don't think that is appropriate. That said, if that's something the city wants to pursue, especially now that we have the EDC, we want to really target tourism. And one way we want to do that is have an RV style, resort of some kind. We have land to do that on, and we could have the potential to acquire that land if there's another place that would be more appropriate. So, just food for thought.
One last thing I'll hit on. So in there you will see the automatic gate. So our goal with the RV park is to separate it from the park in a way. This would also mean that higher prices, more likely that we can shorten the amount of stay that people have. Instead of 6 months, a lot of places do 3 months just because you get the, get good changes and fluctuation. That's been brought up in the past, shortening that. And I think with the improvements plus the automatic gate, I think that we could really have a really good area, but then also not invade and take away from the whole entire park. And as you can see in the site plan, it stays in the area that the RV park is currently and doesn't push into areas that are currently highly used.
Could you show us where the gate go?
The gate would go, if you look right here, you see the playground. And
You killed it.
So if you put the automatic gate there, vehicle traffic couldn't go through there,
No,
and
sir.
people couldn't walk through there.
people, so we don't want to fence in the park. If you go to most RV parks or state parks or whatever, you can walk around. Of course, you don't walk through people's site. That's a knowledge thing. But we don't want to prevent the foot traffic, enjoying the trails and everything like that. But we do want to stop the vehicle traffic. Not just since people come flooring through there, but also for potential for PD. It helps them know who's going in and out. It's also one of those things, a lot of RV parks, minimum charge probably about $50 more just by having an automatic gate. This, to me, I feel like is a great addition. Our whole goal for the Parks Department is to separate the RV park accessibility with vehicle traffic. Just because like events and different things like that, we do have people that don't follow our rules and it causes safety issues. So with the design, that master plan stuff I had brought to you, and I won't go too much into that, we have a plan for the park to eliminate that middle section. So right here, potentially a little further towards almost where the yellow bollards are, is the area that we would look at. And that way there'll be signs that say RV entrance only. It stops people right there. And then that accessibility would be a two-way for the RV guests only. They would not be going through the back gate off of Alsace Avenue or towards this area. It would be one way in and out right here.
Well, I want to be careful. So when we talk about not fencing, there may be some fences, but they'll be low, what I would call low impact fences. So right now what you're seeing is a split rail. Some of that split rail fencing put in, I think looks really nice. It's complementary to the park. So if we do any fencing, it would be something along those lines with people access. So in other words, maybe it's split rail, but there's an opening somewhere where a person can walk through. The whole idea is that during special events and other times, we've removed the possibility for a vehicle to travel from that designated RV area into the larger park area and vice versa.
And I know, I think we need to study this more, but for instance, at one point in time, we've all talked about moving the public works yard somewhere else, and also talked about when that happens, probably move the streets department also there. And if you do that, then that opens up that area where you have your current streets yard. And that's a really nice area, big trees. You could, again, as you said, planting. So I think before we did this, I think we need to look at that. Because I don't know if there's a need, like right now, for the last 2 or 3 days, there's been 3 trailers parked out in this overflow thing, which could easily be in there. Now, I realize this is just this couple weeks they go low, but then I don't know how your formula is where you said that you would be able to pay this back in 2 years, because that's assuming that this is all going to be 100% occupied. I assume that's what those numbers.
We are currently at 100%. We have been for about 4 months straight. The reason that those don't have people in them right now is because their reservations have started at a point in time that we don't have people that can fill them for short term.
Right, so right now, are you getting revenue on those spots? Right now,
On those
today?
spots,
The
no.
vacant ones,
I
okay.
think all 3 of those people come in during Easter weekend.
Right, so right now, that's not 100% occupied because you're not getting, I realize that someone could come in here and rent it just for a day, but they can't rent it for a week.
It's another reason why we want to change it from
Yeah.
longer term to shorter term reservations, because the long term reservations really give our ability to keep them full all the time.
Well, and it makes more sense. It shouldn't be a space for living, it should be a space for vacationing.
That's right.
We really don't want people living in the RV park. I mean, that's,
People are more likely to pay more money. I know New Braunfels, they have a limit of 7 days, and they charge a ton on some of these water front areas, and these would be classified as premium areas, and that's where I think we want to address it later down the road. But yes.
So, yeah, so again, I think, well, the other thing though is what you said also, Scott, I think we need to be careful to realize this is a more park, and maybe not just, even though it brings in revenue, it's not a commercial RV. Because, so the larger it gets, the larger we make this, especially sticking it out here versus moving it and trying to incorporate it into the, because that other land there is really very attractive land, and there's a lot over there.
You're talking about the public works yard?
The street yard, yes.
And
And,
that an RV park?
no, you know where the street department is now?
Yeah.
Right up there with the little building and
Well,
below.
I think that we're getting into, if it's okay, let's
talk about it.
what he's talking about is where all the trucks and equipment are
Parks
kept.
people are,
Right.
not streets.
Well, parks and
Oh,
streets are
okay,
there.
yeah, okay.
But I think that's definitely a conversation that we'll do during the budget planning, during the, those kind of, workshops.
So real quick, the road that goes around the perimeter of the park, that would become a two-way?
No, it would still be a one-way. It would just be the middle part that goes through the RV park would have limited access. But we are looking, a part of the Parks Master Plan was to find additional exit or entrances that didn't affect the overall function of the park. Because we want to make near the pool a one-way because of course, it's near the pool.
Right, okay.
So this item is on your agenda for approval. What we're asking for is funding for the Lions Park, which was a total of $390,000 for the projects that are outlined, $15,000 for September Square, and $15,000 for the regional park. Yeah, looking at those projects, one of the things that's contemplated for next year would be shade for the pool. If we're able to get court for what we're anticipating, the $2,000 to $5,000 range, I would like to go ahead and use that money to add shade to the pool.
That's desperately needed. I mean, you go there and people are crowded around, you got to get there early to get the shade.
Right.
I think that's good. And
It's about a $7,000 item, so it fits right in that.
I also want to commend you, the approach that you're taking with Lions Park. First of all, thank goodness that we're finally going to get something over there. It's been underutilized and underappreciated, and it's very needed over there. But one of the things that I appreciate about the way that you're approaching it is you're going for functionality. We've talked about beauty. We've talked about shade, the need for shade, the need for irrigation. I think that beautification, it's definitely important, but you're going for the functionality first and adding on you're doing the must-haves first and the nice-to-haves as you go along. So great job on the planning. I would be curious.
Funding this, because honestly, I mean, this comes down to the city council's willingness to prioritize funding for these types of projects. And that all goes back to that bond issue and the CIP. So we can only do what you allow us to do. So we really, we're very excited about this stuff that we get to do from a staff perspective.
Right.
Because of what you allow us to do.
Just to help me make a motion,
Yes.
you're requesting now 22 and 23 money, so that would be a total of $290,000 for Lions Park, or just a $250?
$290 for Lions.
$290 and $15,000 for Regional Park.
Yep.
And 30,000, or just 15,000?
15 for September Square.
15 for September Square. I'd like to make a motion that council approve the budgets, right, of $290,000 for Lions Park, $15,000 for Regional Park, and $15,000 for September Square improvements.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, discussion? Bert?
I'd just like to point out that I think these are all good things, and I'm going to support them. But we don't have anything in the park's long-range plan for east of the river. We don't have anything in the long-range plan for the Castroville Community Complex. There's a lot of things that are not in the Parks and Rec plan. And I'm all for these, but as we go forward, I would like to just make the point, you need to be thinking about adding in the missing stuff into the CIP before you spend all the money, so that some of the other stuff that we're really going to need in the next few years comes to fruition. That's all I'd like to say.
I'd like to say something too.
Please.
I agree with her, but I guess everybody's hoping that some of this east side development will pitch in to some parks and stuff like that on the east side of town. But as far as Lions Park's concerned, I think we're way overdue. way overdue, so I think that's a great deal.
Right, and I appreciate the way that you went through the Parks master planning process, because they did identify, you got to make sure that you look out for this. And so, to Scott's credit, and working with the new developers, you're seeing, for any of these proposed developments, you're seeing that same kind of stuff put into those.
Well, I agree with both Todd and Herb in the fact that I think we need to take pressure off of Regional Park, because the soccer is really stressful to the park, and the way we do that is we locate that new regional sports facility wherever it is, and hopefully we can work with the developers coming in and whatever else do it, but I think that does need to be something that we're always thinking about.
And to a certain extent, the county is supportive of that. Larry has expressed interest in pursuing that, so I think that's something, as we go through our planning processes, that we start identifying partners in areas. So thank you for continuing to push on that.
Yeah.
Councilman Terry?
Nothing to add. Thank you. I support the program, and of course, those long-term goals are still the long-term goals.
Mm-hmm. Councilman Martinez?
No, have no comment.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thanks.
Devin, you really put together a great deal.
Nicely done. Next item is discussion and appropriate action. Well, actually, let me just say, we have our interim police chief with the next three items. So one of the things that he's been doing is coming through and just looking at how do we keep citizens and our officers safe, productive, and really able to do their jobs and come home at the end of the night. So thank you for looking into these.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, do we miss an
Skip
intent?
9 and 10.
You skip two, boy.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm trying to keep this agenda.
Sit back down. I know, that's right. Thank you all very much. Thank you for, I just want to thank you for that. So let's go back and get the actual.
I thought I had three presentations in a row, but I honestly did.
Yeah, Devin has.
Well, I'm trying to move it along.
See you next time, Mike.
All right. Sorry, Devin. Okay, so next one is update on stormwater drainage master plan. This is, yes, definitely critical.
So for this, Mayor and Council, AB is here with K-Freeze. They have been doing quite a bit of work behind the scenes. AB, I have your presentation over here, so I'll be your Fema.
Okay.
Assuming I can actually work with this thing.
We should have hired a younger city manager so that he could work on it.
I don't think age is unfortunately for you.
We need to get him a new
Look at
mouse.
that. Look at that. It worked beautifully.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Today we're here to present an update on the Stormwater Master Plan. That was something that was approved late last year. We've started early this year. We've been meeting, talking about the projects and the progress. So today is just to update you on kind of where we're at on things and kind of the next steps moving forward. The Stormwater Master Plan, just as kind of an overall objective and goal of the plan, is to use this as a planning tool to understand the risk within the community of where flood risk exists, where the problems are, and identify how do we then prioritize and identify projects for implementation. So this becomes useful in determining where we're going to invest money in the city to improve flood infrastructure, as well as it's a tool to then take to different funding mechanisms, whether that be through grants or other programs to help leverage funding opportunities. So at the end of the day, what we do is we hope that this informs the general public and council of what's going on in the community and how do we identify and prioritize projects. So what we've been doing since the start of this year is we've first started with putting together what we called a hydraulic rapid assessment. So we basically took a rainfall simulation over the city on the terrain and ran it based off of in this case, a 100-year storm event. And illustrated to determine where the hotspot areas, or the problem areas are within the community. So you can see kind of on that left side image, that's the main part of the city. You can see that there's, in green, that represents flooding or inundation, and it's generally in the areas of like Athens Street, Naples, areas that I think we're all kind of aware of that are issues, but it helps really pinpoint that. The other thing that we wanted to look at was one of the things that we use from a regulatory perspective is the FEMA floodplain maps that is then used to for homeowner insurance or flood insurance. And so what's going on right now across the state is there's new rainfall data that was published a few years ago called Atlas 14, and that's the new statistical data that we're then calibrating our models against. That rainfall has generally increased throughout this region, and so these are the flood maps that exist now, but they are changing, and that's something that's happening. So FEMA's going through that process. It's going to take a while before those maps are updated, but what we wanted to do in the interim is take the available data from these models that exist, try to put in some better rainfall data, and just get a better approximation of what's going to happen when those floodplain maps get updated. And what that will help us do then is also help inform policy decisions. So if we know that there's growth occurring within the city and there's different developments that are occurring, how do we update policy to reflect the changes that may be coming our way? So once we have these two things, these two existing conditions mapped and understood, and once we understand where the problem areas are, then we can start identifying projects and how do we find solutions, what are the costs associated with those projects, and then how do we get them implemented. And so that's where we are right now. We've identified about 20 different projects throughout the city, and for this scope of work that we have with this master plan is we're going to dive into 10 areas. So what we'll be doing as next steps is seeking input from you all, from the community, on are these the right 10 projects that we should prioritize to figure out how do we implement solutions for them, and then steps for moving forward. So we'll have those 10 projects, we'll score them based off of different criteria like flood risk in terms of structural damages, property damages, access for emergency vehicles, roadway flooding. Those are all kind of standard important factors when we try to prioritize the actual projects. The other thing that this master plan will do is take a look at the policy and drainage criteria that the city has adopted right now and see if there's any recommendations that we need to maybe bring things up to current standards or to current FEMA or regulatory perspectives, or understanding based off of development trends and what does that do long term, and then how do we get ahead of that by creating some sort of codes and criteria that allow for that. Finally, the other thing that this will help do is once we have these 10 projects, we've prioritized them, we understand the needs and the value of them, this is a great tool to then take to, say, the Texas Water Development Board, to FEMA, to apply for grant programs. Once you have an identified need and you have an understanding of the cost, it makes that process just a lot easier. It's still a competitive process, but now you have some tools in your toolbox to go and do that. So right now, as an example, the Texas Water Development Board is going through what they call the regional flood planning or state flood planning process. So there's different regional flood planning groups, and what they're doing right now is they're meeting, they're talking to different communities, and they're trying to get projects put into the state flood plan.
The great thing about this is we did not plan for that. It was very surreptitious, but I started getting calls about flooding, whereas normally I get calls from state agencies I'm ill prepared for. I'm in the middle of doing everything else that we're working on, and then like, hey, we need, for instance, the PUC and Jericho, we have to have an emergency response plan because of COVID or the snow did and all of that. In this case, they called up and said, hey, we want to talk to you about flooding and FEMA and maps and all that. And I was like, great, we're ready. So NEB, very gratefully, have been part of our correspondence response team to the state agencies and regional efforts to tie what you've already funded and are working on back to those programs. And the timing could not have been better because it's right. At the same time, we're trying to identify here's what our key priorities are, our projects are. We're able to plug into this group and, just as he was saying, start to help them with prioritizing different projects. And hopefully, to the extent that ours meets needs and becomes an issue for the state or for other groups, we might have a funding source down the road.
Yeah, exactly. And so the state flood plan is going to be adopted in 2025 is the schedule. They're right now working on the regional flood plans. Those will get rolled up into the state flood plan. There's going to be a big pot of money at the end of the day for funding larger scale projects. And so what we were able to do is we met with the Texas Water Development Board's representatives a couple weeks ago. We put in some projects into consideration. They're going to inevitably ask for more detail, and what we expect is next year we provide an amendment to the plan on the projects, and so that's an exciting opportunity to see, where that may go.
Can I ask a question? Is the Athens Street project one of the projects that was put in?
Yeah, we're actually going to go through the projects here in just a
Yeah,
second.
and what was submitted to the Texas Water Development Board initially was, yes, we put in the Athens Street project, and then on the north side, is that, I guess, Naples Street storm drainage improvements. We put both those in, and then we put in some kind of regional flood studies that we recommended, and I have a map on here, and I'll cover that in just a second, but, as development occurs in the north, how does that impact the city, and then kind of Flat Creek in that area to the east? I think there's, some more studies that need to be done there to better understand what's going to happen there in the future. So where are we right now in the plan is we've completed our data collection. We've produced some initial hydraulic models. Those are those flood risk maps that we've talked about. We've updated some of the FEMA floodplain mapping risk maps as well. And so that's kind of telling us the picture of where the problems are. The next step is to then show that to you all in probably more of like a community meeting, workshop type session. Talk about that, make sure that we're on the same page, that these are the problems that you all are seeing, or if there's things that we were missing. And then we have a list of identified projects. We've come up with what we think are, some 10 high priority projects, but we need input from you all to confirm that we're on the right path as we move forward. Right, so as soon as we have buy-in on the 10 projects for us to then further evaluate, we will develop some conceptual solutions, some cost estimates with that, and then we'll start looking at scoring and ranking these projects. Again, we'll coordinate that criteria, those metrics with you all to make sure that those are the right metrics, and then we'll have a list of projects 1 through 10 of most important to, maybe something we do later, more of a wish list. And then we can start thinking about how do we move into implementation. And then finally, we're going to look at your all's policy and criteria and recommend some potential updates with that. Yeah. So the schedule, where we are right now is it should show that April, that's where we are right now, and we're talking about the projects and where we are. What we're hoping to do is schedule a meeting for towards the end of April, maybe it goes into early May, is having that public meeting with some stakeholders to talk about the projects and the progress and dive into this in much more depth. And then once we have that direction, then we can start moving into evaluation of the CIP projects. We intend to do that over the summer, produce a draft report, a draft master plan by August, and then wrap this up for council adoption towards the end of the year in October. And maybe in your agenda packets is the full presentation. And okay, so if it is, this is a detailed schedule. I won't get into all of that, but if there's any questions, happy to answer those questions. And then these are kind of the maps that we're producing and that we'll be sharing in more detail later, but this represents the flood inundation throughout the city for the 100-year storm event, and it shows, a lot of this is more shallow flooding, but it's certainly a problem. And so we'll talk more about those and kind of where we identified projects and get some direction on next steps.
The next slide is the last slide. Did you want to go to the earlier question about kind of what projects we've identified? I can't, it's difficult to read, but I remember looking at a larger version of this. Is this, how many projects are actually enumerated on this slide? Is it all 23 that we originally identified?
Yeah, I think we have all 23 on there, but we've...
So what we did was we had an initial meeting with engineering and staff. There's obviously a lot of historical knowledge about flooding, and unfortunately the city has already experienced a 100-year flood, and we know what that looks like. We have
500-year flood.
Yeah, 500. So we know what that looks like. We have anecdotal stories about what happened during that flood. We also have the modeling that AB discussed earlier. So when we met, we talked about, okay, here's the entire world, if you will, of projects related to the known issues. And these projects vary in size and scope, if you will, from as simple as looking at some culverts and doing some barge improvement, pretty minor stuff, some of which can be handled in-house, to very large projects like the Athens Street project that was contemplated way back in 2001 and that is now being looked at. So with that, after discussing that, we identified, as you stated earlier, kind of 10 main projects, 5 that were large and high priority. Do you want to go through which 5 those are?
Really quickly, what I'm noticing here is that this map that you're showing here stops at the Walmart. We really need to be planning all the way out to Victory Lane, because with the development that happens there, we need to make sure that we understand, especially going down Flat Creek, what the impact to other properties are happening
I
there.
have a larger map.
Yeah.
I can share back.
Okay.
So the area actually isn't limited to what you're seeing here. In fact, as Amy mentioned earlier, they're looking further north. So when we look
Right.
they looked at how Trenco's developed. So they're going all the way up to Trenco, looking at how Trenco's developing. How's it going to impact 471? What if the land north of the Baines and all that area starts to develop? What does that look like? So that's the kind of stuff that...
It's on the next slide.
Next slide, yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, so this is the larger map, and you can see it goes well far, well
Perfect.
east of the...
Right. And so we've identified capital projects like Athens Street, Naples Street, the big storm drain improvement projects, but then, so those are capital projects. And then there's other projects that are on the planning side of things of if this growth happens on the north side of the city as it's planning and happening, how is that going to impact flooding further downstream for the city? And if we can study that, we can get an accurate representation of the risk and come up with some ideas for solutions, then we can help inform development as it happens, because it's much more.
One of the interesting things we talked about that I really haven't considered a whole lot of, partly because I'm not an engineer, is the development along the Trenco and how that can actually impact us down in Castroville. Yeah, everything flows this direction, and honestly, I hadn't given that a whole lot of thought because it seems like there's a lot of empty space, a lot of empty land between us and what's happening way up there. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
And the biggest impact that we've hit is when the Medina River fills up and San Geronimo Creek fills up, and you bring those two together. Just a quick reminder to the audience, if you would like to get involved with these conversations before, you can meet up with the committees that are doing it, and you can follow up with us afterward, but we limit the discussion here to council. All right, go ahead, sorry.
That's it. So did you have you want to talk about projects or not?
Sure. So I think if we go back to the other slide, two of the large projects that I've mentioned a couple times now is the Athens Street project, which is coded as LC3. That's on the southern side of the map.
Bottom in the middle, yeah.
That's certainly a well-known problem, a problem that we've...
Where at now?
To the right, there you go.
That's a big project. That's one that we submitted to the state flood plan for consideration. And then,
How are these labeled? I see LC1, LC2, LC3, LC4, LPs, SCs, TXs. What?
yeah, I don't know the answer.
As I said, you can ask
did
questions
at one point,
afterward.
but
This is
I don't
council
remember right
discussion. No, sir. Excuse me, sir, you're out of order. Please, you can call me. All of our numbers are on the business cards up there. You can call us afterward. Please feel free to do that. All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
So Athens Street, which is on the south, Maple Street, which is on the north, that's coded as LC4. And you can see there's a big green swath. Yeah, right.
Near the elementary school.
There we go. So those are two major projects. Garcia Creek there on the left side, there's some significant channel stabilization issues that continues to erode that could compromise not only the roadway, but also the properties that are along the creek as well. So that's another recognized priority. We talked about some of the studies on the north and to the east, and then I think Flat Creek in the airport area is another area that we've talked about. So those are generally kind of along the lines of where we see the priorities. There's some other smaller projects, but those are kind of some of the bigger ones.
It's hard to see, but this is actually where the mobile home park is. And when you look at a flood
No,
map,
that's
mobile-
actually, the mobile home park is further out. Yeah.
Yes, it's past
When you
the
look at
event.
a floodplain map of where that mobile home park is, maybe it's right here. Yes. It's absolutely completely inundated. Like, I don't know what happened in the 100-year or 5-year flood, but what our modeling shows is that that thing is completely water. Now, it's not in the same limits currently.
Right.
I don't know if it would be in the same limits, but it's still a concern. It's a life safety concern, flooding in that. So that's just.
And that's really my point, because we need to make sure that we're responsible stewards of water and making sure that we're not affecting people downstream from that. There's another resident directly next to that. She sent me pictures of her property during the floods, and it's buried. So just want to make sure that and it sounds like you've got that included, so that's good.
It definitely communicates that, and we understand the risk better. And then it also, there's going to be partnerships that need to occur, specifically TxDOT, and this becomes a tool then also to just talk about exactly.
We've already kind of reached out to the folks that we need to on the TxDOT team to share some of our data with them. I say I'm using the Royal Read. I'm actually referring to Kate Reed. They've already done that for us. Are there any other comments or questions from Mayor and Council?
I've got one. So there's, behind my house on River Bluff, there's a creek bed that is, when we get the heavy rains, it all drains down into there, so, yeah. Is that gonna be looked at? Because it fills up quick and it flows down and it affects it.
Last year it was 5 feet high.
Yeah, we had the waterfall behind my house.
That's right.
Yeah, so I didn't know if anybody looked at that or considered it, since it's part of our yard, but it's considered for the drainage.
I mean, looking at the map right now, it looks like we might be missing that, and that's exactly the reason why we need to have these community engagements to make sure we got it.
So let's just make sure that we cover that and get that out to council before we have the public hearing. We should do that sooner than later, because pretty much each one of the council members knows what's happening in their district specifically, knows the key points. Let's just make sure that we get that out to them well in advance.
Because Amy sent me something after you revised the maps. I need to send those out.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
All right, well, thank you all.
Thanks.
You're not yet.
Streets.
One more. He's all excited about it now, right? All right, we're going to skip over you then. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, next item is, let's see, next item is update on streets plan with Devin. And it is at 6:27.
This is a presentation only.
Presentation only, yes.
Yeah, this is presentation only, and really, the purpose of this presentation is just to update you on where we are on streets. There has been some development since the CIP that you adopted. When you adopted the CIP, it had some supporting documents in it, was kind of a phased approach to streets. And there's a significant change to that plan that we're going to talk about tonight.
Hey, Devin, on the beginning of the parks presentation, you had a beautiful picture of the park. I'm just wondering why we didn't put a beautiful, I'm just kidding, potholes or something on here?
Beautiful pictures.
I just wanted all the data.
Yeah, there you go.
Parks is beautiful.
Well, we're looking forward to, once we get it to the point where we can put the picture up on there, so,
That's a good point.
great job.
So,
Yeah, they're water features.
So I'll be going over the amount of the money for the CIP that y'all approved earlier this year. And like Scott said, I'm not asking for anything, really just bringing this stuff to you. We'll be going over the review of our current projects all the way back to 2018, the streets budget with capital improvement plan review, 2 to 23 projects that includes bond and county assisted projects, along with 23 and 24 bond and county projects. Then going over a summary, maintenance plan, and timeline. All right. So first, as you can tell, 2018 we spent quite a bit on contracted work. That was a chip seal project. Since then, we have had a lot of changes in the city, and I think that stunted a little bit of our stuff going on. We did have multiple projects with the county, and then as you can see, we had the Berlin projects, well, the CIP for 2021 last year. As you can see in the contractor side, Berlin Street, linear feet 3,455, square yards 8,500, percent of streets overall 2.5. County involved roads were those several different ones, Mexico, Petersburg, and Alsace Avenue. Total linear feet 4,100. Total square yards 10,700. Came to 3%.
So the kind of takeaway with this slide is from 2018 to present, we've done about 5.5% of the linear feet of streets in Castroville. This is important because the next slide we're going to talk about kind of what the goal is. And obviously this all comes down to affordability, and unfortunately we're engaging on this and embarking on this at a time when costs are just escalating literally almost by the day, if not by the week. So with that, if we were to try to target 10% a year in streets, it's roughly 13,000, 14,000 linear feet. We'd have all the streets fixed in 10 years. How realistic is that? It really comes down to, well, what is our ability to go and finance that? So right now, as a reminder, we've only financed 2 years' worth. We do have a plan, a financial plan that allows us to go out and borrow more money and finance an additional 2 years, but there is no plan after 4 years. When we talk about CIP and community complex and other issues that we know are things that need to be funded, we have limited, currently, a limited prospect and limited plan on where that financing is coming from. We have 2 financing opportunities. One is the bond we just issued, and the other is a bond that, provided the council of 2024 is ready to issue that bond, we'll issue a bond in 2024 for a similar amount.
And the way that the plan is put together, again, I'll state this again, 10% a year over 10 years fixes everything. Over the past 4 years, 5% over 4 years versus 10% every year. So if you don't start on it, you'll never finish it. We can't accomplish it all at once. It's not realistic. I'd love to have it all fixed in the next year, but it's not feasible. It's not practical.
Well,
So
hopefully 10% a year is feasible. I have my doubts.
That's ambitious.
Because of the costs.
Yep.
I didn't have so many doubts a year ago, but now looking what's happening, we'll see how things play out.
So I'm sure all of y'all have seen this multiple times in my presentation. This was our 2020 street assessment. This really was supposed to just be a RSL rating across the whole entire board. Yes, it doesn't include some of our streets.
RSL's remaining service life?
Remaining service life, 0 all the way to 2020 being great, 20 years, and then it goes down from there. RSL rating should only be really looked at from the point of 0 to 4, because those are the ones that they could degrade at 2-to-1 ratio. So every 2 years, what we predicted for 1 year, they're degrading. And that's one thing you'll see in our reports is that since we've had this done, we've had multiple streets that have just, they were 6, now they're 3s. And it comes down to drainage, it comes down to wear and tear, no preventative maintenance, so that's something that we are going to address. So as you can see right here, there's two items, or it's split into two items. There's the street replacement and then the street overlay and maintenance. The street overlay and maintenance is going to address more of equipment costs and internal city improvements that we can do through staff. And the streets replacement plan is going to address our large street projects.
The contracted work.
Contracted work. So as you can tell, in 2022 and 2023, there is an engineering cost to that, along with construction. We took, 15% of that to try to have a good solid number. And as you can tell, that's earmarked right here. So the first project we're going to bring to you is something that we're coordinating with Public Works on, and that is the Lafayette Street project. They are currently planned for this year to do a water improvement, a water line improvement. So we're piggybacking on that, and that's our whole goal is to get things done at once and also not have to dig something up later on or have to replace something due to lack of planning. So as you can tell on this one, the 22 plan for the water line replacement, there's no known utility conflicts outside of that. So with that, the recommended treatment was chip seal. For the width on this road, I know some of y'all might see that they go 30 feet. That's just something that we have as a standard. Yes, most of our roads, they ranges. So we just like to have that because it's, a good number to go off of. We're never
Over.
Yeah, over.
So keep in mind, as we look at, sorry, I told you it's very,
It jumped.
very
It jumped.
Okay.
I picked it up and moved it. So just to be clear, when we're looking at streets, you have that RSL rating, remaining service life. There are two components that go into trying to determine which streets we're going to work on. So one is how much life is left, how much does it cost repair, what type of street it is, how much traffic it is. All those things play into it, but separately from that is, are there known water and sewer issues underneath that street? And is there a plan in the near future to replace those water and sewer lines? And so if there is, or if there's a major issue where we have to go up and tear up our street, as Devin just spoke to, we don't want to do that. So when you look at these slides, one of the things you'll see is a notation above the table that'll say either no known utility conflicts, or it'll identify the utility conflicts that are known. So we'll speak to those as we go through the slides.
Next item is Country Village improvements, known issues, potential sewer issues. That's why our next step is CCTV. This was selected as a potential project versus River Bluff, which y'all saw in our CIP workshop, was due to the fact that there is electric, water, and sewer all there. And of course, the longer we try to wait to try to align all those things, we're missing out on options, well, the funding that's already here to address current projects. So with Country Village, there was just sewer review that's needed. So that's why we were wanting to hit that first. The next item is going to be a county-involved project. That's Amelia Street. There's no known utility conflicts. Versus its sister street, Naples. Naples has some drainage issues. Amelia currently does not. It has some improvements to the ditch line. That would be something addressed by our internal staff. Next county presented project is Houston Street, Old Highway 90, Alsace, and to finish off Furland Street. No known utility conflicts there.
Again, this is the reason why these are searched at the top. There's not a utility thing that has to go with.
And when we refer to utility items, that's a report that we're provided by our engineer where John and all of his staff took all the repairs, any kind of known issues and put those on a map, and that's what we overlay here. So if there's one over the past 5 years, it's probably not going to show up versus in some areas we have 4 or 5 repairs done in the same block. That's something that popped up higher. 23, 24 bond, River Bluff neighborhood, known issues, electric, water. Next up is going to be our CCTV. It's one of those multiple projects that we're going to have, John's going to address later on in this meeting, CCTV funding so they can start on some of these.
And that's tentative based off of once they complete, can't talk, the electrical.
Yes and no. So we just acknowledge that there is a major electric project there. So in some sense, it may make sense to wait. But as we take that project up a bid, and look at the timelines of that, and see how much disruption there is to our streets, I think that's going to inform whether we're going to be ready in 2024 or not. The other issues, like I said, there's some known water main issues in River Bluff. And so we want to get those repaired before we repair the street. We don't know about the sewer. It's kind of same as Country Village. We just need to camera that and see what kind of shape it's in.
Yes, sir.
So hopefully everything turns out all clear if we do both of those, and we don't have to do some kind of major sewer.
All right, thank you.
The next one is Maple Street. This one we know has drainage issues, as Davey spoke on in the last presentation. So that's why this one is put for next year, not this year, so that we can figure out sort of the direction the city wants to go on that and incorporate our streets plan into that. For the county projects, Mexico and San Jacinto streets, currently no known utility conflicts. These roads are, Mexico more than San Jacinto are, we get quite a few complaints and potholes and different things like that. So these are definitely roads that need to be done.
And I acknowledge what we're talking about. I didn't say this earlier. These are complete rebuilds. So for the most part, we're rebuilding these roads. Even Country Village, if you drive through that, they're really nice roads, but in some places the crown is gone. So the crown's caved in. So that's an area we're going to have to rebuild it.
And with your county rebuild, what are you anticipating to do? The same as Berlin or a typical?
We've taken them down and they are giving us their opinion. Okay. We'll be giving those, we'll have a meeting with our engineers, but per meeting with them yesterday, they'll evaluate the road, and unless there's a change, they'll be following the same procedures that we did on Berlin. In some areas,
with the exception of throwing rocks at homes.
Yes, yes, that is a very, yes, the county is very used to using trap rock, and per our last project, we are focusing on that. So yes, that is something that you're looking at doing.
And putting it down in appropriate amounts.
Yes. Yes. The next item, 2324, is of course Athens Street. This is another one that Amy spoke on. It's something we know that needs to be done. The drainage is the main priority there. The road, of course, is a drainage. So depending on which way we go, this is a road that we want to address because of the degrade to the road due to being a drainage. That's one of the reasons that we need to look at it because of the amount of water it catches. We have some portions that are failing. So as you can tell with the 22-23 projects, you can see a combined of 11%, which is right where we want to be. That is, of course, the contracted and the county. 23 and 24, we are actually at a higher percentage at 15, but with these, these are goals that we project as reachable.
Yeah, my big concern is just how the pricing comes in when things up. We got a pretty good bid this last time, and hopefully the same contractor may be willing to come back and bid it again if we were happy with that. It was a little bit, I think, did a reasonably good job.
So the next thing we're going to go is to our street maintenance plan. Our current focus for our maintenance plan is, of course, to continue to improve on our pothole repair, utility cut repair, sign maintenance, and work on other drainage improvements that we can do in-house. We are coordinating with our engineers on those to make sure that we are trained properly and we don't make anything worse. Our future focus, operation expansion, we really want to get training, certification, renting equipment. We want to utilize equipment that we can for projects versus purchasing them. So equipment that was only used for 10% of a job versus one that's used for 80 to 90%. And then of course purchasing equipment. That is something that I spoke on in our CIP item. We have some items or some things that can be attachments that are fairly inexpensive that really help us do things internally faster and to a higher level. And then, of course, county-city cooperation.
I think the opportunity there is just, it's not just getting them coming and do the work, but we've got combined, I think you said 45 years of experience now with there's a new hire that we just made that hasn't come on board yet. So we're very excited to bring him in because he's got quite a few years of streets maintenance experience and came highly recommended. So hopefully getting those folks more involved with the county, actually going in and doing some of the county projects to work side by side and learn some of those processes. I think the city will be the beneficiary of that. So when we talk about city-county co-op, it's not just about having the county crews come in and repair roads, but it's an actual cooperative approach to street maintenance that we hope will build, in the long term, will build greater capacity within the city to address minor issues when they come up.
The next thing is sort of a timeline, projected timeline. We are already started on the engineering and designs of these roads. That is something that we started last year, but we just wanted to earmark in April. County projects, like I said, I spoke with them earlier this week, and they have an opening in May, so we'll utilize them as much as they have available time. And that's where you see to September, because with chip seal, that's usually about the time that, and they have other commitments. So for our engineering and design, the reason that that's so spread out, we can have it sooner for advertise and award, but what we're doing is we're trying to get as many projects as we can completely ironed out so that when we take this amount to bid, it can get those big project bidders and get lower pricing, and it's more enticing. And that was a priority on this. And then kick off projects in October or even sooner. Because of our projects, our main project for 22 being hot mix, the temperature isn't really as big of a priority. Of course, we don't want it freezing where that could be an issue. But if we have a light winter, they could start into the fall and have several months of good weather to address some of these projects. Well, that brings to the end. No picture, Darren. Sorry, the streets, but I'm hoping to have early summer bring y'all back some items that we can present to bid and have an update overall on everything we spoke about.
Great. All right. Thanks.
That's 18
Thanks,
minutes. 18 minutes, Brandon.
Close. Nice.
I think it was 20
Great job.
minutes for
Yeah.
Is there any questions for this?
Good presentation.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Well put together. Thank you. All right. Next item. Okay. So the next three items.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Hello, James. I gotta say, when you came up and introduced yourself to me earlier, I didn't know who you were. Then I was like, oh, that's our new police chief.
I think you need to introduce.
Right. So the item here is discussion and appropriate action on purchase of new body worn armor for the police department. And this is James Kohler, interim police chief.
It's 6:45 p.m.
6:45 p.m.
Mayor, Council, when I first got there, I started looking at items that I thought were safety critical issues. And just out of the blue, I said, well, how old are your vests? And there were some old ones in there. I listed those out there. The National Institute of Justice recommends 5 years. They say 5 to 7 years. They start replacing them at 5 years if you get a hold of a grant, which I recommend here in the future, that the city go in there and be involved in that grant. They'll pay 50% of those vests. We took 3 quotes, and we took the one quote that also looked at adding a trauma plate over your vital organs here, and that was my recommendation to go with that vest. And we've had one opening right now, and that vest is included in there as well. From my previous experience, this is a little different in coming in mid-year. I know that the way things are, I think it's critical to get these replaced. I truly do. Putting those officers out on the streets with the vests that some of them are out of date. So the total price was $5,730 for 6 body-worn armors. And you'll hear some people call them bulletproof vests. Typically, that is kind of a, yeah, because they're not always bulletproof. These will not stop rifle. They'll stop up to 45s, so they're threat level 3 vests. And I highly recommend that the council entertain the idea of approving that.
So the total price is $57.30 out of fund balance.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion that the city council authorize the expenditure of not to exceed $5,730 from fund reserves for the purchase of the body-worn armor as so presented.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I got one question.
Okay.
Go ahead, you first.
Okay, this is 6 vests plus 6 chicken plates, or whatever you call them, personally?
Trauma plates.
We call them chicken plates. Every pilot had one.
Yes, sir.
Goes inside your vest.
Yes, sir.
They work very well.
Yes, sir.
I can attest to that.
You're here because you can attest to that. Good.
My question was, is that something that we can look at and buy board? Can you get a better deal?
I don't know if the particular vest, these are on the buy board. We did go out for 3 quotes.
Yeah.
I've looked at them, and I think the prices are reasonable. We went through 3 vendors out of the San Antonio area. I could look on the buy board, but it's probably going to be one of those companies out of San Antonio.
Could we? Yeah.
It's worth looking at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll look at it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
What we will ask you to do is approve up to an amount tonight, and if we can get them cheaper, we will get them cheaper through buy board.
That sounds awesome.
Great. All right, more discussion?
Just a comment. Do we have a tracking database there? That way we could, when it comes time, it'll pull up a report saying these items are up for replacement?
That has been started.
Okay, thank you.
That has been started.
All right, I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, next item, discussion and appropriate action to approve a contract with Axon Enterprises, Inc. for the purchase or lease to own tasers. This item is at 650.
Thank you, Mayor Council. And for the record, this is single source. You can't buy them anywhere else. Taser's the lone man out there with these. When I looked at them and I saw some officers carrying tasers and some of them aren't, I said, where are the tasers at? And they were broken. Some of them, the monitors on them are not working, which basically is not telling you which one you're shooting, which cartridge you're shooting, which is an issue. Looking at it from not having an intermediate impact weapon is a liability, in my opinion. I watched a video yesterday, the day before, out of Florida, where the lady was in a store with a knife, and basically we're trained for lethal force on lethal force, and until the backup got there and did the other lethal force, this officer transitioned to the taser, and it was a peaceful resolution. They tased her, she went in, they handcuffed her, and nobody got hurt or killed. So I think it's a good intermediate impact weapon to utilize, and I think that number one, they're end of life is what they are, and they're not going to repair them. And
The ones that we have.
yeah, the ones that we have, they're end of life. And looking at some of them, you know, you're talking that I would not want to send an officer out there on the street with a taser that's working or halfway functional.
Right. Do I have?
Make a motion?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion that city council approve the lease to own at not to exceed $5,585.30 per year for 5 years of the tasers as discussed at the council meeting today.
And I will second again.
I'm not on the board, can I amend the motion?
Yes.
Just that when we go through budget process, that you remember the next 5 years, it's only a small amount, but small amounts add up over time. But there's a $5,600 basically hit to the police budget, so when we see that.
Right.
I'll remind you, but.
And by the way, the reason I picked that, it's the same cost either way, so that they're not
Right,
charging.
right, there is no
so
interest. That's
Spread
right.
the money out.
Okay. Discussion.
Another thing, can these be added in the tracking database that they have for the guns?
They
Okay.
will be.
For the lease agreement, does that include any maintenance or issues that come up with it?
They come up with the cartridges. They give you a certain set of cartridges with that, and also we'll do an upgrade after, I think, 3 years.
And they handle malfunctions and stuff
Yes,
like
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Other discussion here?
I was just going to say, I know that oftentimes we have one officer on duty at a given time, and if he's ill-equipped, he's at a great disadvantage, so I'm very much happy to see this happen. So,
Yes, sir, I'm aware of that. We're working on that, hopefully got some positive news today.
It's great to have non-lethal force when possible. Councilman Sherritt? We're going down the road.
This is 10, right? 10 per year we're leasing?
No, it'll be 10 that will be leasing, and that'll have one for the chief, will have one spare if the chief's not carrying the taser. I don't know what the chief would want, if you want to carry it or not. So this gives each officer one of their tasers.
So the quantity is how many?
10.
10. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Great. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item, discussion and appropriate action to approve a contract with Motorola watch card video for mobile in-car video cameras and body-worn cameras. This is at 653.
Mayor, Council, this is also on the buy board. I reached out in my previous life, we just went through this. Looking at what happened was CopSync had partnered with a video camera system. CopSync was bought out by Logic, I believe is in there, but they didn't buy out the camera system. The best I can tell is we've not had a video camera system functional in the units 2 to 3 years. That's an issue in my opinion. Number one, the information and the evidence that you gather is so critical these days. Unfortunately, it's getting to the point where if it's not on video, it didn't happen, which is kind of a shame. I'm the old school coming in, but I think it's important to gather that information. That looking at with that, I reached out to, like I said, the other people that have gone with this system. There's 2 or 3 big ones, and that's L3 Mobile Vision and WatchGuard Motorola. We apparently, in my old police department, we had L3 Mobile Vision, and when I saw the quality of what Motorola was pushing out, we decided to go with WatchGuard. Looking at it also, we were at the end of life with some of our cameras, so it made more sense to come in, and we did the lease program as well on a little bit larger scale. Also, the body-worn cameras, this is also packaged in there. And what you'll see is on the video cameras, when the officer, if he leaves that area of his car, you have no video. The body-worn cameras are getting more and more involved. Previous life, again, we went through there and issued, when the state had the grant, and bought all the body-worn cameras then, and we had 0 complaints of people using them. The officers loved them. And he got used to them, you know, and I've told people before, you should always conduct your business like you're always wearing a camera, because you never know, the citizens are out there filming you. But I think when the officer goes mobile, whether it's into a residence or anything else like that, it's extremely important for them to have that video camera still rolling. This is including a redaction piece in there that you can go in there and redact it to take some of that pertinent information out. And this is for everything, installation, purchase. The only thing that's going to, and it's not going to be a cost, is we have to get with our IT people to make sure that everything that they need is going to be there at the PD when they come install this stuff. So we'll be reaching out to HTS. They fill out a brochure, and if there's any questions, there's correspondence back and forth with them, and to make sure that when we get there and we're ready to go with the cameras, if it's approved, that they can get it done.
So we're talking about the cost of the lease or the purchase. Have we looked at the ancillary? You said we haven't reached out to HTS to find out what's in place. I saw that there is a service contract for storage of the video, which is a huge thing. I think that's great, a cloud-based storage. But have we looked at what are the ancillary costs of personnel to manage the videos or any additional IT stuff that we might need?
I cannot answer that at this time. I would surely would not be that much of a cost associated with it, because really when you come into what this system does is when you pull into the PD, it automatically downloads and then goes to the cloud. So basically what you're looking at is we just need the equipment to make sure that it's going to work there when we pull in, and it automatically downloads that information.
So we don't have the information that we can actually download it, upload it, we can't transfer it.
That's a piece of equipment from Motorola. The only thing they need to have is to make sure that it's a plug and play. They have a, an outlet where an outlet's supposed to be or something like that, or do we need to change the dynamics of it, of moving the download antenna to another location or something like that, kind of looking at that type of, I guess, service from HTS.
They're going to need bandwidth.
Well, they've got bandwidth,
Okay.
for sure.
Right.
Right. It's usually going to be like a caching system with an upload after.
Well, you all approved a fiber to both
Right.
City Hall, PD, or library, so that was a great supportive step prior to doing this. One of the questions the mayor asked was about support staff. So who does CID for this?
Raymond.
Raymond. And so-
Define CID, please.
So, I don't remember, what's CID stand for?
Criminal Investigations Division.
So they generally will, when there's a records request from the DA for a specific piece of evidence, the CID officer will prepare that evidence for the DA, is that correct?
Correct, and you also, the admin assistant that you have up front, she can be trained on the redaction aspect of it. I know they haven't gone to, I don't get too far off track, but they're talking about going to a tech shared type of system with the DA's office. I've got a meeting with them next week to see where they're at on that. So everything's downloaded, there's no paper, nothing that goes directly to them, which this system will also do.
And in the past, if I've had open records requests, and that's how we found that, I think there was one that we didn't have redaction on, our city attorney had to become involved with it, and then, of course, we had to send it to the AG for their opinion. It wasn't an active case, I mean, it wasn't
Correct.
something that the DA had done, but we do have that occasionally.
That was probably
Open
pretty cheap, right?
records. So it's nice to have a reaction.
Okay.
So one of the questions I know you and I talked about was the CID and who does that. I didn't know the answer at the time, and I honestly hadn't had time to talk to them about that prior to the meeting. So
Okay.
it sounds like you do have a person. One of the issues that we're running into is just short staffing. So Raymond's doing, Officer Rodriguez, right? Is doing, Detective Rodriguez is doing patrol duty from time to time. That's really not a best case scenario, but again, we're working on filling those positions. We had a very successful call with ACOG about getting funding for positions, and hopefully that goes well. So as we do that, that'll lower the amount of pressure on this person to process information.
So the specific question is, so the council can look at a true cost of this, what is our, I guess, fudge factor? What's our margin of error on this in terms of dollars? For this to be a
What's the
fully
hourly rate of
functional system?
HTS, do you know?
I would say it's pretty low.
Pretty low.
I think the real issue, what you heard him say is that we just need to make sure that there's a plug and play ability for the Motorola equipment. There is no additional server equipment required through HTS. It's just to make sure that that piece of equipment has the power and internet that it needs and has it where it needs it. So, we'll call it $2,500. I mean, I think that's high, but just to be safe.
Right.
In case we had to do full install of a new outlet, a new whatever that case is.
The old system was, the old system did allow that download as well, like pulling in. So apparently it's there somewhere. We just have to figure that out with HTS and make sure it happens.
Okay. Did you need more clarification?
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't think we have an understanding of the cost for the storage and the cost for the administrative work to access, get it out of storage when it's needed. I mean, you're telling us what it's going to cost to buy the cameras, 17 cameras, I understand that. But
No, sir, 7
I'm not
cameras.
sure that it would be wise for us to make a decision to buy the cameras until we get a clear understanding of what is this new way of business going, what's the total cost going to be to us?
Everything is included in this quote.
There's no storage. You said they're relying
No,
on
the storage
IT.
is included in there. The
Yeah,
storage
if
is
you look at the
included.
first-
Everything's in there.
If
The
you
only
look at
thing
the
we're
very
worried about is
first one,
HTS.
I couldn't see
That's
that.
in the proposal. The
sorry.
very first one is cloud-based storage.
So
Yeah.
Right.
the cloud storage is in the cost.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And that's why I was asking, what is the additional cost? And that's the right thing to look at. So
Correct.
it's fully functioning. We have to wrap up the loose ends, which are minimal cost.
HTS, and we're good to go.
Okay.
So we technically have a computer that's dedicated specifically for this.
No, it's cloud-based.
No, because it's cloud-based. So any computer with an internet access access and the proper credentials can access that cloud-based.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the recommendation is authorizing the city administrator to establish a contract or purchase of the in-car video and body-worn camera, total price of $94,200, or lease to own at $1,570 per month, or quarterly invoice of $4,710 for 5 years from the fund reserve balance. Do I have a motion?
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the city administrator to establish a contract with Motorola White Card Video for 10
Body-worn cameras.
10 BWCs and 7 mobile video cameras for the lease to own at $1,570 per month or quarterly invoice at $4,710 for 5 years from the fund reserve balance.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it, here again, is this something that we can get a buy board?
This is a Bible.
This is
Oh,
Bible.
it is.
Yes, sir, it is.
I
Yes,
didn't
sir.
hear that. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, it is.
No further questions.
Total annual cost will be $18,840, so add that to what you just approved. We have about a $22,000 hickey that the police department will have, and I'll remind you of that every budget season.
Great. All right, Councilor Dyer, did you have any other questions? No. Okay, any other discussion? All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, very much.
Thank you.
Looking into this.
Thank you.
Jim, I will also say thank you for stepping and helping us, because I get a lot of, I have a very comfortable feeling just based on your presentation.
It's fun.
We have a
It's
good
fun.
guy here, so appreciate that.
All right, next item is 704. Consider and take appropriate action on authorizing the city administrator to request for proposal for the position of police chief.
So moved.
I see you have a summary there. I just kind of explained some of your options. Really, I'm looking for direction from you. We do have a proposal from the group that helped us find Jim. If we utilize them, we don't need to pay a finder's fee for finding Jim. That fee is around $1,500. I anticipate that if we go out for proposals, they would be one of the cheaper options, but we don't know that for sure until we do the RFP process. I recommend going ahead and doing the RFP process to see how things fall out. And I think I told you kind of what types of firms or who the firms might be that would respond or that I would expect to respond to your thing.
So are you looking for identification of which one we're going to be using, or, because it...
Really the decision from council that I'm looking for is, one, do you want to go out for an RFP and actually hire a firm to help us find someone? Because that's not a given. That's what I would anticipate, but that's not a given. The other options, if you don't do that, would be simply to not go on our RFP and pick a specific firm, which you can do. You don't necessarily, because this is for professional services, you don't necessarily have to go out and bid it. The second option is just to have staff do it. So we would post an item in the paper, we would process the applications. I have zero desire to do that.
Right.
Be upfront, but you pay me to do it. So that is an option if you wanted to avoid the cost. There is a cost to using a professional service. They generally charge, it could cost the city anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 to find a police chief.
We honestly have...
Out of the air, but
Yeah, we have to do this right. We can do it slowly, carefully, methodically, but we need to do it right. Do I have a motion?
I guess before I make the motion, can I ask a question? So the first option is that for, and it's not just the fact it's a low fee, but for these representatives from the Texas Police Chiefs Association, they're the ones that Jim came from, that recommendation. So we would just engage with them, and then they would go out and search for somebody.
No, what we're talking about is putting out the RFP for the different search firms, which would include those, which would include SGR.
No, that's right. That is one option,
Right.
would be to simply engage, not either them or one of the other firms that I mentioned in the.
Right, but they would be less.
I don't know that.
Oh, I thought
I suspect that would be the case, but I don't know that for sure, because we haven't issued an RFP. I only have anecdotal evidence of what kind of the other firms charge.
So we don't have to make the decision tonight which one, basically, we're authorizing you to put out an RFP.
If that's the direction we go, yes.
You can either go out for the RFP for the search firms, or you could just approve one of the search firms right now.
And it doesn't really hurt us to go out for the RFP versus
No.
just picking. So I make a motion that we authorize the city administrator to issue an RFP for the police chief recruitment services.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? From this side? No? From this side?
No.
Great. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
I will issue an RFP. I would expect 3 to 4 weeks to get those responses, maybe less than that. As soon as I think we have 3 or 4 viable responses, I'll bring it back to council for action.
Great. All right, thank you. Next item, the item is at 7:08. Consider and take appropriate action on the purchase of a sewer jetter machine. That's John Gomez, Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor, council. Staff recommends approval of a sewer jetter. The one we have now has been older in age, and I think it's used quite a bit. It was purchased in the 90s, early 90s. Well, at least the trader says that. I've been told that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Even with us maintaining it, Hondo called us today, said that theirs is out, and they were on to make sure that if ours was working, we'd be the backup. And I said, might be hard to do that one. We're kind of 50-50 all the time. And I told them, man, you guys are our backup. So this is one item that we're in desperate need as far as having something to clean the lines, something that take the roots, rags, rocks, grit. Those wipes that they say are disposable, they're disposable. They'll go down, but yeah, they don't disintegrate.
They don't break down.
Yeah. So I also want to mention here that we do. I did mention that as growth happens, this is a piece of equipment that'll need to be expanded or be able to get a vacuum, which is those bigger vacuum with a big nozzle to be able to vacuum out some of these things that I'm talking about. And right now we don't have a big vacuum, but I told the guys how we'll be trained and show them how to do it, how to clean the stuff that comes out of there.
So that's an add-on to this?
No, that'll be a totally different.
I mean,
machine.
but it works in conjunction with this, or it's just a completely?
This is just a
This is a
jetter.
So think of this as rotor. The vacuum
Giant
actually goes down and it removes plugs by sucking up into it. Yes.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to go into that.
Yeah, I don't have cool stuff like James has.
Yeah.
You need to do this before you can camera the lines anyway.
That's
so.
true.
The other thing I want to mention, and I apologize if you're about to say this, but this is already in the capital improvement plan that we adopted. It's one of the pieces of equipment, and the cost is a little bit less than what we originally had budgeted for. It is a buy-for quote, so I just wanted to cover all that.
Right. Do I have a motion on that?
You want to make it?
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city administrator to purchase a new sewage jetter through buy board for the not to exceed $72,360.
I'll second it.
Great. Any discussion? Nope. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Yeah,
Spinning like buckets of water.
Thank you.
gotta make the city work.
Mayor and council, this is a program that we started.
Have you read the item?
No, not yet.
Well, I'm gonna read that.
Well, I appreciate you trying to move us along. That's nice. Next item, wow, short work at 7:11.
My bad, I'm sorry.
Discussion and take appropriate action on authorizing the city administrator to enter into a contract for CCTV services for ongoing maintenance of sewer lines. It's John Gomez again.
Thank you. This is a program that we started a couple of years ago where we're going around and televising the sewer lines. We did hear, I was even talking to a gentleman back here, and talking about that we did have some cameras, smoke testing done on our manholes, but not the lines themselves. So this is one of those programs that we will test or video the lines, clean the lines, and video the actual lines. This is in conjunction with what kind of Devin was mentioning earlier, is we're taking some of his maps and following along, or trying to get ahead of him, eventually try to get ahead of him in doing these things. So that's what this is for.
Sorry, the other thing to mention is this is in the CIP and it's contemplated kind of like the same way the tree trimming is, where this is something we're going to need to do every year as a maintenance item for our sewer lines, in the same respects that trimming trees back is something really we should be doing every single year to maintain our electric lines. The system needs mapping, and we need to assess its current condition. And really, the only way to do that is to do the camera work through it.
Visually.
Yeah, and this year we budgeted 100,000, and which will get us 25,000 linear feet. So, and it's on the buy board as well. This contractor's on the buy board.
Really?
Yeah.
What we'd like to do is seek permission, kind of as you heard our auditor speak to, when if the understanding is there and the agreement is there, that we be able to go, and as long as the CIP has been adopted and there's understanding that this amount for this item has been approved by council, that we can go ahead and do this on an annual basis. The same thing with, again, along the lines of the tree trimming. That if we get it done, we will make you aware that we're doing it at the time we're doing it, but that this is something that we anticipate doing every single year.
Great. Do I have a motion?
A question.
Okay.
If we're giving you an automatic authorization in previous years, does the recommendation need to change from what it's written here? Because this looks like it's just for this time.
The linear footage would change.
I think just make the motion for this year. I wanted to make sure y'all understood, anticipating
It's
that
gonna
most
be
of
every
you,
year.
hopefully it'll be around for future years to talk about the CIP and implementation of it. That This will be something you're gonna get to hear probably every year, and we'll make it on consent in the future.
So basically, the idea is that we're going to put it into a normal plan, but we've got to start it now.
Understand.
And to do that, we need a motion.
Unless I make a motion.
Motion, man.
Motion, man?
Unless you want to.
No, go ahead. You're doing a hell of a job.
I recommend City Council approve the authorization to have a contractor Vortex clean and televise approximately 2,500 linear feet of sewer line throughout the city.
25,000.
25,000, excuse me,
25,000.
throughout the city for a fee not to exceed $100,000.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thanks, John. All right, next item. So on this item, we need to consider and take appropriate action on accepting Eric Cherry's resignation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then the next portion of this is we're going to review the applications for the open position and talk about what we want to see in there. We'll make a motion next council meeting on who to actually accept into that. So the first portion of it is, I can separate this into two motions, right?
I'm looking at the support items, we'll get back to it.
Okay. Well,
Don't even talk about it.
Well, there's, Mr. Cherry, sorry, I wrote this, on the staff report, it states that he has resigned officially because he lives outside the city limits. I mean, you can make that motion to accept his resignation, and then, of course, discuss the other.
okay. So,
And also, I'm sorry, there's also an application before you for Mr. Fuentes.
Right.
He had not submitted it when I first put this packet together, so there is three as of right now.
so can I get a motion to accept Eric Cherry's resignation?
I so moved.
Right?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And then review for the open positions. I think that, especially with planning and zoning, really with all of our boards and commissions, where we have people that are stepping up to this, we need to make sure that, I mean, you've got two sides. One, I think it's so important, especially on this board, to have people that bring some kind of functional knowledge to this. People that can actually, we've got some great people that have leaned into this, really understood this, and we need to have people that have some sort of expertise, whether it is hands-on tactical, whether it is engineering type of strategic. I think that we're going to be much better off by having this kind of person in here. The other side is the people that actually show up, the people that are here constantly, the people that are always here to support it. So I think that we need to consider both of these as we're considering these applications. I know that our normal standard is to take an existing, if we have an alternate, to automatically put them into that place. I really think that we should look at each person that we appoint and say, what value do they bring? How do we get the highest and best use? I'm excited that we've got multiple people that are applying for these things. So what I'd like to do here is go through and have, if the applicants that are here wouldn't mind just getting up and telling us a little bit about what you feel like you can bring to the board, why you feel like you're the best candidate for this, and then we'll have that discussion, and then we'll come back in next council meeting and actually vote on that.
That's what I was going to clarify, was make sure that we aren't filling positions tonight.
We are not filling the position tonight. We're hearing from the applicants, and this gives you the opportunity to think about it, to talk to your constituents about it. You can talk to the board about it. It just gives us, I think that filling these board positions, I experienced one earlier this year where we kind of did it. I felt like it was a little bit more of a snap decision. I want to make sure that we're doing these very thoughtfully and methodically. Get it?
Are all three of the candidates here?
We have a total of, don't we have four?
Three.
Well,
Well, for
We have
this
a-
one.
We got 3 resumes in this package.
Right.
Well, we have 2 for planning and zoning, and then the one you have before you. The other applicant, I'm not sure that she's here. It's a
For the library?
student for the library.
No, you have 3 for planning and zoning. Mr. Fuentes,
Well, that is.
Yeah.
Jacob Posey,
2 others, yes.
and Mike Schmidt. We got 3 people
We
that
have
have
just the
given us.
3, right? Okay, yes, we do.
For P and Z. I'm just asking the question,
Yep.
if we have the information for these 3 people, do we really need to wait? Can we listen to them?
Yes,
and
we really
discuss
need
it
to
and
wait.
vote for it?
No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to make
You
any,
can't vote for them because it's not on the agenda.
right. It is for
It
discussion.
is on the agenda.
No, accepting
Oh, excuse me.
Eric Cherry's resignation was, but the
Okay, instead of review.
review the applications.
Okay.
Right. All right, so who did we have in here first then?
We got
I
Mike
know we
Schmidt's
got
here.
Marcus and Mike.
Michael first, Jacob second,
Michael, Jacob, and then Marcus.
Marcus is third.
Hi there, Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Evening, council. How are you?
Would you state the name and your...
And your
Michael
address?
Schmidt, 808 Lower Lacoste Road. I can't tell you why I would be the best member, because I don't know the others that have applied. What I can tell you is what's on that paper is accurate. I've been working in local government for about 15 years after I retired from the Air Force for 28 years. I started off as a code enforcement officer and did a lot of work in development services. We didn't call it that back then, but I reviewed plats, worked closely with at least 2 of you, Phil and Paul, during the time that I worked here in Castroville for 10 years. I moved on to another city and was a public works director. I have a water and sewer license. I'm was a code enforcement officer. I let all of that go. I recently resigned a position. Well, not so recently. Time flies. We're having fun. I can tell you why I want to be on the board, this commission. I see a lot of things happening. When I first got here in 1995, council was battling with setting up the ETJ and trying to extend it out as far as possible for the onslaught that we're receiving right now from San Antonio and the development that's coming in. I did a lot of work with a lot of the engineers in this room that were in this room. I have developed a particular set of skills that I think would be valuable to the commission. Would not hurt my feelings if I didn't, because I will be involved and you'll see me anyway. I don't know if you have any questions of me, but that's how I feel about it. As far as being available, I retired from the Air Force. I have a TMRS retirement. I'm not looking to work or punch the clock for anybody else, so what I'm doing right now is working on my own property here on Lower Lacoste Road. I still have a lot of information in my head about when I worked here. In the streets, water, sewer, electric. I was the production manager when I was here and the public works director in the other city. I don't know if you have any questions. I'd be glad to answer them.
So I've got a question. Your particular set of skills, are these the
All
same
of that
as
I just
Liam
mentioned,
Neeson?
water, sewer, electric.
I think that was a Liam Neeson quote. I'm hoping it's a different particular set of skills.
Yeah, I use that for that reason, by the way.
Thanks. All right, let's start on this side. Any questions?
No, I know Michael very well. Thank you, Michael.
Yep, same here.
Did you have to wear the LSU shirt?
Had to. Just for you. Go Tigers.
No questions from me.
Are you an engineer or a professional?
I have none of those professional services under my belt, sir, but I have worked closely with
So you do not
quite a
have
few
an
of the
engineering
engineers
degree?
around these parts, as a matter of fact.
Just to follow up on that, what were the water and sewer licenses that you held?
What, excuse me?
Water and sewer licenses, did you have your A and B water? Or
C.
C water and C sewer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just so you know, that, I mean, and speaking of professional degrees, when you're dealing with water and wastewater systems, those aren't necessarily engineering degrees, but to get your certification, and start to basically go from C, B to A, there's quite a bit of technical you have to be proficient in order to obtain those licenses. So Michael obtained the C licenses for both of those, right?
Yes, sir. And I was a floodplain manager. Passed the test twice. People looked at me like I was crazy when I let it go the first time. I didn't think it was that hard to pass, but there were engineers and other people in the room that didn't. So I don't know what that means. I can just tell you that I can show you evidence of such.
Well, I appreciate all your conversation at the coffee house, so thank you.
My pleasure.
And related to Coffee House, got to interject, of course, you moved to town 27 years ago, so.
Yes, in 1995.
You understand these issues of planning and zoning, and that's, at least in my mind, that's very strong.
Yes, sir. I actually work closely with those boards and commissions in my capacity as the code enforcement officer and production manager here in the city of Castroville.
So you understood those issues?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
You
Appreciate
bet.
it.
Thanks,
My
Mike.
pleasure.
Next up, we have Jacob Posey. Hey, Jacob.
Good evening. How are y'all doing? I'm Jake Posey. I'm a licensed professional engineer, civil engineering. Recently, I was fortunate enough to accept a position with a firm here in town, which will certainly allow for more time to volunteer for these sort of activities. I've got just over 10 years of experience with all facets of civil engineering. I've had some experience with water, wastewater, quite a bit of drainage, but also some site development work. So have worked extensively in the city of San Antonio, having to meet their codes, those sort of things. So familiar with those processes. Like Mike said, I also passed the floodplain manager test. I was one of those engineers in the room probably he was talking about. So have some of that background as well.
Was it painful?
Not terribly painful. I guess the reason I'm interested in serving on this board is I'm a 3-year resident here in Castroville. We've been here just over 3 years. Have small kids we're planning to bring up in this city, and I guess I just want to volunteer my time to serve the community and try to help foster positive growth, because the growth is coming whether we like it or not. So
Whether we like it or not is right.
All right. Do we have any questions for him on this side?
You had anything for him, Paul?
Herb,
I don't.
No. What's that?
I believe both Michael and.
I didn't say my address. I'm 246 Strasburg Street, which is down in West Tyne Village.
West Tyne Village, I just looked you up. Over in Mike Pence's neighborhood.
Yeah.
David.
Who are you with?
Just took a job with Respect.
Okay, because your state board thing still shows you're with
I'm currently with CDS Murray up through next Friday, I guess, officially. So start here the following Monday.
Okay, well, you were with a good farm league, and I don't know about working with the rest of
I don't know that either. I guess I'll find out pretty soon.
We both upgraded.
Yeah.
Great.
No other questions.
Councilman Carey?
I have no questions. Thank you.
No, I have
No?
nothing.
All right, great.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
All
Thank
right.
you, Jacob.
Appreciate it. Marcus Quintus?
Present.
Marcus.
What's up, Marcus?
Marcus Fuentes, 1311 Houston Street in District 1.
Are you tired yet?
Sorry?
You've been a little bit busy?
We've been very busy.
Yeah.
Dowscope 2.0 on Saturday, I didn't get home till 6 in the morning.
Thanks for all you're doing out there. You guys are just really doing a great job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. And the city support. Thank y'all for being out there for the morning meetings out there for Dowscope 1. It's not officially
1.0.
I named it 2.0. Anyway, 43 years strong. I do attend council meetings fairly regularly. I'm pretty sure y'all have seen my face every once in a while. I have my share of knowledge of the city. I've may not be flood past, but I was evacuating people in 2002 and saw the floodplain, where it came to, how high it came, as part of the evacuation process, and being with the fire department. So I saw what houses got flooded. I saw what was underwater, what wasn't, what almost was. So just thought I'd throw that. They said flood, I might as well throw that in there. Currently, I am on the zoning board of adjustments. I know a couple board members went in front of me at that time, and so I am currently on there. If appointed, I will be looking to step down. I'm an alternate there, so I know I can be on more than 2 boards. I'm also already on the Parks and Rec board as recommended by Mr. Schuhart when I first tried to get on the P&Z board. So thank you for Mr. Schuhart. That's been an eye-opener, and I do love it. I do have the time. I do care about the city. I see where it's going. I see where it's come from. Y'all have seen me come up here and try to pick apart a couple ordinances that need to be tidied up. I do want to close those gaps. I do want to make it fair for everybody. I feel that with my knowledge and my supporting knowledge that I have behind me, I get a sense of where we came from. And I see the future. I know the master plan that Mr. Gardner put forth us a couple of terms ago. Some things I like, some things I don't like. I would like to see this town tidy up, in a sense. Again, I just would really, really like to be a part of it, something that I know I can benefit. I know the city can benefit from my knowledge. I'm not afraid to speak my mind, as y'all know. As a parent yesterday, none of y'all were here, me and Mr. Bond had issues, but that's besides the point. Oh yeah, Debbie was here. And so...
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I would really like to be a part of it. I really would, and I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen. Thank y'all for letting us do this, 'cause I hear y'all supposed to review only tonight, so thank y'all for listening to us, all 3 of us. And whoever you pick, I agree. Engineer, great. Mike, he has the knowledge, he's been here since 95. I think you'll benefit either one of us, honestly. Will not offend me if I don't. I will be around still. Thank y'all, council.
Thank
you.
you.
Marcus.
Anybody have any questions for Marcus?
Nope.
I think we all know Marcus. Not for Marcus. Thanks, man. I really appreciate the fact that we have so many people that are stepping up to this, so many people that have such a great passion for this. So thank all 3 of you, and look forward to this. Councilman King?
Giving us work to do.
Yes, they're all 3 very capable.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Related to that.
So we have work to do.
Can you make it easier on us next time? That's the only thing I ask.
They're going to say, let them all go in the room and come out and tell us who they pick.
Cage match.
Marcus may win.
Do the drawing of rocks.
I noticed that it looks like 3 terms expire this June, July.
Correct. Each board that y'all have, with the exception of HLC, the terms are staggered.
Right.
And so upcoming will be in June, the terms for, I'll be bringing it back.
Right.
Definitely.
But have we checked with those people to determine, are they all want to re-up? The reason, before we make this vote next time, it might help to know, because again, that's only a couple of months off. And since we have 3 really great candidates, but you don't have to tell me tonight, but if you could check with them before the
I
next
can check.
meeting.
I definitely can. I can say on this board right now, they've been on quite a length of time. It's a good board. Miss Priscilla's back there now.
Right.
She hadn't yelled yet. But, and there for a while, I know we had a hard time keeping, it wasn't necessarily the main board, but the alternates. And so at times we have that on any board, of course. But I can double check.
Well, and I think this is also something, as a board liaison, I see this, part of the responsibility is to liaise with the board, to make sure that you're talking to them. So each one of you, for the ones that you're the liaison to, you should know the current status of the members that are there, finding out if if anybody's stepping down, if they're happy with the people that are there, if they're looking for something more, something different, something less. So I think that's a big part of what we should be doing with those boards.
Well, whoever does it, if we could know that by next meeting, that would
Sure.
help.
I can put something together for you.
All right. Okay. Next item, discussion on future agenda items. I want to point something out. It's 7:32. You're welcome.
Hooray!
What's up? Oh, do we still have the library book? We don't have the,
Hey, you haven't called.
We gotta
the
do
meeting
something
yet.
like that, don't we?
no, we don't have that as an agenda item.
What's that?
We don't have the library as an agenda item.
No, the library's not an agenda item.
No,
No, we just have information.
Just information, yeah.
just
So-
information on the back.
For the board?
Oh, I'm sorry, on the board, I apologize, I was thinking library. The young lady that's in your packet,
Yeah.
I put the roster there so that you can see. I believe the student rep has not been, and I think we have, Carol, oh, there you are too. We have some members from the library board that's here on that. She has not, I'm sorry, that position has not been filled, I think, since 2017.
No, it was filled not long ago. Young lady was on there for a year and a half, but it's been vacant for over a year.
Okay.
There was another radio.
Okay,
young
I'll have to go
lady.
back, and that was my understanding from the library director, but.
Okay, so what are we looking at on the next agenda then for this specifically? We want to,
We would appoint her as the student representative.
okay.
And hopefully.
Student representative.
Yes, she's a student representative.
Okay.
She's from the high school. I believe.
She doesn't get to vote, but she gives us a lot of perspective from people that are at the high school that she knows, and it's usually pretty helpful.
Right.
And that's what it's always been there, that position to help kind of.
I don't know.
Okay, we can get that, we can't do it tonight, but we can.
I would like to mention, I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but Mike Estes, the president of the Library Advisory Board, passed away from a heart attack just a couple of days ago. Very unexpected.
Another one. Oh
And
my
his
God.
father died about a month ago from a heart attack. So it was a very big loss. Mike has been on the Library Advisory Board for over 10 years, and he's a great part of the library, and we're really going to miss him. It's going to be hard to fill.
All right, so what I was going to comment on here is thank you for keeping things moving along. I just want to remind you to make sure that you're asking your questions before the meeting. We still had a couple of them speckled through here, so in the interest of time, let's just make sure that we're reaching out. If you have any follow-up questions, please also reach out to staff and we'll get that taken care of.
So what's the cutoff? Because I normally review this and review it again, and then I do a final review this morning of, and sometimes that's where my questions pop in. Is that morning?
Questions this morning.
Okay.
So if you,
can get, I would prefer to have them by the end of the day on Monday, but just get it when you can.
Okay.
Right.
You can get, today, just so happens, I haven't read the email since noon. So if you'd sent it afternoon, I wouldn't have gotten it.
Okay.
I haven't read it.
so if you can get them in, and that was in the email, if you can get them in, if you want to get them answered before the meeting, get them in over the weekend. If you want to have them answered by the meeting, get them in by the end of Monday. And even if you get them in on Tuesday, it's better to get them in and begin that conversation
Prior to the.
Yeah.
prior to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we just need to try and get as much done ahead of time as possible.
No, I think that's only fair.
What's up?
Yeah.
Are we still on future agenda?
Yep.
So, before you ask anybody else, I'd like to talk about the council workshop. We called it a retreat in the past. I think I sent the wrong message to some folks. It's definitely not a retreat that anybody would want to attend, I don't think. It's where we talk about budget and some of the other strategic planning initiatives of the city council. We had Mr. Ron Cox come to facilitate those workshops last year. At that time, we talked about having him come out again. I've had him programmed for May the weekend, I believe, of May 14th and 15th, that's or 15th and 16th. Ooh.
14th
I'm
and
looking at
15th?
April. I'm looking at April, sorry. The 14th, actually, 13th and 14th, I believe it was a Friday and Saturday. Right?
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
it is.
Yeah, so
That
Friday and
sounds right.
Saturday. You have one conflict that I'm aware of. Councilman Dyer's going to be out of town starting May 2nd through May 19th. So the mayor requested that we look at other dates. I've reached out to Ron to find out what those dates consist of, and I have a list of them here. The first available after the May 13th weekend would be May 23rd. That's on Monday, so you'd be available that Monday to Tuesday, perhaps.
But Tuesday's a council meeting.
Yes, and Tuesday is the council meeting, so I don't know how.
I'm good with those, just throwing it out there.
Okay, so one of the things I could do, Mayor, I have a list, it's May 31st and June 1st, June 6th, 7th, and 8th, June 17th, June 13th through 17th, June 20th, June 1st. I have a list. I can send those out, or I can send them to you and have you go through them. What I thought we might do, though, is just find out if there's any known conflicts, if there's anybody else that knows they're going to be on certain dates between now and July 1st.
Why don't we send out an email that has all of the dates
Yes.
available, and then put your first, second, third choice, or just yes, if there's no choice, and if you're not available, just say not available. I think if you do it like that.
And Todd doesn't have.
And Todd didn't have to.
I got to sign a resignation.
What's the official, is this last meeting, next?
Next meeting?
It'd be May,
It's not next meeting.
May
no,
10th?
yeah.
May 10th.
You're stuck with us a little bit
That's
longer.
right. Yeah. April and May, that's right. Yes.
Okay, I'll make sure that,
Meeting one after.
just out of celebration for you and your service, we'll have a very long meeting the next one, the next two.
You're really doing pretty good this time around. I'm impressed, and I totally agree that, we can shorten it up even more by asking questions before.
Great. Do we have any other agenda items that we want to cover?
Yeah, I just would really like to encourage our P&Z to, I don't know if they need guidance to start the process of the comprehensive zoning ordinance
Yeah,
revisions.
so we were kind of waiting until Brianna returned from maternity, and
Right.
she has, and so we'll be starting that very
The other item is that some time ago, months or years even, we did vote to repeal the tree ordinance, but we did not take action by ordinance to repeal the tree ordinance, I do not believe.
Yes, we did.
We did.
Originally, and that was a few years back.
Yeah.
That you did this without an ordinance, and then we
Right.
came back with an ordinance.
Okay, so we did come back with the ordinance. I just noticed that
I'm
we're
gonna
still.
double check that.
We,
with
I
you.
said we did
It's-
some
it's still
action
on-
to
it-
email the council out the minutes from that meeting.
It's still on the
Just a
books.
reference.
That's why I said that.
Right, we
Okay.
just, well, yes, and we did the codification, it should be repealed,
Okay,
but I'll double check that.
okay. That's why I asked, because I noticed when I checked our ordinances that it's still there. So, okay, that's it.
Any other items?
We really need to start getting emergency management front and center and working the because as you mentioned earlier in the meeting, the thing of all of us getting together and working together in the county and the cities, well, that requires memorandums of agreements. That requires it to be plugged into our plans and everything. So we really need to bring it front and center. When the fire was going on out there, everybody was looking for cots and what have you. Well, if we had our memorandums of agreements and everything and used the money that I said $500,000, we could buy those cots and have it pre-staged at any location that we have a memorandum of understanding with the facility, like we talked Koenig Park and stuff like that. We really, really need to get this going.
And I think that part of it is in cooperation with a large part of it is in cooperation with the county.
Yeah,
because
but that's all of our MOAs and
Right.
MOA and MOUs.
So this is a future agenda item.
Yep.
and
Yes.
I will respond to email to that.
Perfect. All right. Thanks. Anything else? Great. All right, we are through the agenda and adjourned at 7:41.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
My spaghetti will be cold after my